Good morning, Grand Risings. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton. And guess it is exactly 9 a.m. GMT. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I truly, truly appreciate it. Oh, I appreciate you all so much. Look at you already in the comments. God love you all. Truly. Thank you. Hello, Tara and Markuson and Marlena and Katie and Peter and George and me and David and Marina. Marina, all the way from sunny Cape Town. Marina has just dropped in to make us all jealous. That's what she's done. And good morning, Randy. How are you? And Frank and Rita, Grand Risings from a freezing Glasgow and sky lined with spray. And good morning to our two wonderful mods, Soul Sound and Crazy Bunny. Crazy Bunny's in Edinburgh, and she had the clearest of clear skies today. Good morning to you, Crone. Yes, I'm in red. Lady in red. Do not mess around. And as I say, good morning and grand risings to you all. Welcome to the anti-clickbait show, where our only motivation is to tell the truth, regardless of politics, regardless of sides. For the next couple of hours, I can guarantee you a BS-free zone. That is a show that is not dependent on lies to get your attention. Does that sound good? Excellent. Come with me. On Friday, I asked, we actually talked about growing the show and how we were going to go about it. And I asked you to subscribe. And I have to say, you responded beautifully. I'm getting so excitable today. I'm already spitting. You responded beautifully. Over 1,000 new subscribers since Friday. What now? Thank you so very much. I am so grateful to you all. And thank you so much for all your wonderful suggestions on how to grow this channel. I am slowly working through them and I appreciate them all. Really, I do. It means a lot that you wonderful people, you reach out, you make suggestions about how we can grow Wake Up. So thank you so much. Honestly, it means a great deal to me. So today's show, we will be joined by Alex Creel of the Thinking Coalition, who will be joining us to dig deep on DoGE. Now, DoGE, of course, is the new non-department being run by Elon Musk on behalf of the Trump administration. So that's going to be interesting to get Alex's deep dive on that. We'll also be joined by comedian Tanya Edwards. She's going to be talking to us about comedy, life, and working with Bob Moran. And we'll also be joined by Ben Hawkes. Ben Hawkes from the Wake Up movement, not Wake Up with, from the Wake Up movement. He's going to be talking to us about ley lines. You familiar? Do you know about ley lines? Well, stick around because we're going to be telling you the who, what, where, when, why of ley lines. And also, did columnist Alison Pearson and the Daily Telegraph misrepresent a police visit? More about that later. And tomorrow, the London farmers will be, not London farmers, farmers will be gathering in London to protest at the inheritance tax. And also, Nadine Dorries says there are gay orgies going on in Parliament. We're that shocked, aren't we? And what about that picture of Trump and co with junk food? I'm sure everybody has plenty to say about it. And it would appear that Joe Biden is absolutely determined to end his presidency with a bang by green-lighting Zelensky to fire long-range American missiles into Russia. What are these people all about? And Chancellor Rachel Reeves looks like she'd been telling porkies on her CV. We're that shocked, right? And Peter Lynch, who probably should never, ever have been imprisoned. We were talking about his funeral. And of course, all the usual good stuff, your emails, your geoengineering pictures, and of course, the liveliest of live chats in this or any other universe. We do news differently around here because hell knows someone had to. Did everyone feel the effect of that full moon by any chance? That was a big one, wasn't it? Woo! And by the way, we'll be ending the show talking about the beauty of making a mistake. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. And before I proceed, would you like to see an image of our new mugs, people? Would you like to see it? Would you like to see them, rather? Let me bring them in. There they go. Look at that. Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests and question the narrative. Would you buy one? That's the question. These are currently being organised by lovely Susanna and Mark. And those will be the first mugs that we will be producing. Of course, we're going to have Wake Up mugs, proper Wake Up mugs, but we just thought that these were good general ones to kick off. Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Oh, Katie Wood. Synchronized Soul wants a hoodie. Hey, Heppelwin will get one. Thank you so much. I appreciate all that. Well, hopefully we will be flogging them en masse. Hoodies for them. Hoodies for the mods. Good morning, Chris. Cool. Hoax. Do you like them? Do you like them? Good. Thank you. Thank you. And please, can somebody remind me who came up with the question, the narrative for the mugs? Please, because that person is due a mug from me. Is it a huge mug? Ray J, I think it is a decent size mug. I haven't actually seen it because I'm not in charge of that. Because I know how to allow people to, well, I know how to delegate, but I also know how to allow people to run with their ideas. Yeah. And I'm too scared. What's the matter? Crazy. It was me. John, was it you from Coventry? John, mate. John from Coventry, who highlighted them switching off our blooming lights in Coventry. And then it turns out it's happening nationwide. John from Coventry, you will get a free mug on me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Good morning, all. Good morning, Louise and Sarah and June. I want a mug to go with my PHA one. Looks great. What was the PHA one? What's that? Have I missed that? Grand risings from Tasmania, Australia, says Rachel. Rachel, she's a first-time listener. That means she's a first time in the chat. Welcome, our lovely Rachel. Good morning, Rachel. You're welcome, John. You absolutely deserve it. Yeah, Katie says, yeah, I think a lot of us like John's suggestion. In it, Jenny from the block is here. Of course, not that J-Lo. I'm sure she doesn't want to be anywhere near a news show right at this moment in time. Right, before we welcome in our first guest, and he's a good one. He's a brilliant researcher, but he's done some particularly pertinent work. But let me just quickly have a look at this story, which I need to cover, but I'm going to be extremely careful covering it. And when I say who it's about, you will know why. Of course, given this type of show, it would be completely remiss of me not to acknowledge that there is a lot of talk on the internet about Keir Starmer. Much of it generated from an interview with Reform's Nigel Farage. This is serious stuff that's being said here. Farage is an elective member of Parliament making very serious statements that warrant significant investigation about the Prime Minister. You may have missed it, but this weekend, social media has been full of extraordinarily big claims. Big claims. And the big claims involve Keir Starmer and Axel Ruber-Cabana. I'm not going to say what those claims are. I'm not going to repeat it. I certainly can't, because there is so much misinformation on social media right now that I don't want to contribute to that. I also have very deep concerns about the way people are talking about Southport. It's as if people have lost their heads, actually, and they just say what they want. They have no regard whether or not they are actually potentially prejudicing a trial. Such a thing could literally mean that justice is never served. Is that what some social media hotheads want, or are there darker characters on social media? I suspect so. Masquerading as one of us, but really one of them. 100% yes. Oh, 100% yes. Be careful who you trust. Please be careful who you trust. And as the show unfurls, it will become increasingly clear that there is an awful lot of dis and misinformation online. And we have to be careful about these questionable characters who have jumped on this story. I'm not convinced it's for the justice of three little girls who will never, sadly, get to be adults. But of course, I am recognizing that Nigel Farage has made some very serious statements. And actually, those statements, it would appear, are nothing actually to do with the trial. They are more to do with the Prime Minister. We're hearing lots of things about the Prime Minister. Isabel Oakeshott made these claims recently on a Murdoch platform that Keir Starmer's hiding something about the shape of his family. What on earth could that mean? What could it mean, people? And just a reminder, the farmers' protest is in London tomorrow by the Houses of Parliament. Going to be lots of people there, including World Council for Health. Farmers are protesting all over the country, including in Truro, Cornwall, where they have started a series of planned events. Let me just take this image off the screen because it's not okay to leave it up. There is it. Where they've started a series of planned events. Last week, they took their fight to Cornwall Council. And the farmers in Cornwall are deeply concerned that farmland is being bought up and replaced with solar farms. Cornish agriculture is important for food security in the UK, said Pete Lawrence from Farmers Movement Cornwall. He said, like tourism, the nature of Cornwall agriculture is important for food security in the UK because of our mild climate and early cropping frost-free land. So that's tomorrow in Westminster. So going to be interesting. HK Very. That's not impossible. That's not impossible, that statement there that you're making. And happens in Denmark, all over the world. Hi all, says Dilip. Hi all. Hi all to you all. Yes, Rachel is being welcomed by the family. Wonderful to have you with us. Really wonderful to have you with us. And just to say, I'm going to bring in the next guest, first guest now. Great response to the Paul Burgess deconstruction of Ed Miliband's insane net zero agenda on Friday. Thank you so much. And of course, it's now revealed that 470 delegates were sent from Britain to the COP climate conference. Hilarious. A 5,000-mile round trip. These people don't care. It's all for show. It's all for show. Somebody who is not all for show is here with us, and I'm going to welcome him in right away because why on earth not? Here he is, Alex Creel of the Thinking Coalition. Good morning, Alex.
Hi, Sonia.
There he is. How are you, Alex?
Yeah.
Good to have you with us. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello there. I did hear you briefly. I heard you say hello, Sonia. Thinking. Yes. What Soul Sound, great name. What's that? Can't hear him. No, can't hear him. We did briefly, didn't we? Did everybody hear him say hello, Sonia? Because I heard him. Hello, Alex. Hello, Alex. Oh, it would be such a shame not to get Alex on. What he has to say it's good stuff. Alex, are you muted? He's muted. Let me see if there's anything I can do. I heard him as well, Katie. Let me see if there's anything I can do from my end to assist him. No. That seems to be fine. No, let me have a try. It says unmute mic. I think your mic is muted. I think they're all right. Hello. Can't unmute your guest. Their mic isn't connected. Hello. Yes. He needs a teenager quickly, says the broad box. This is so true, right? This is so true. He is a strong silent type. Let me see. It's still muted. It's still muted. Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Okay, that's it. Right. That's it. Finally.
There he is. There you go. Got him. Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Don't worry. Those things are awful when they happen at the start, but no worry. No worry. Michelle said, hold up a sign for him to unmute. We're there, people. There he is. Chris sympathizes. We all sympathize. Anyway, it's Alex Creel from the Thinking Slow Coalition. And Alex has written a humdinger of an article. Oh, it's a humdinger. Alex, you are by training a physicist. You're also the founder of the Thinking Coalition. For those who aren't familiar, give us a brief overview of the Thinking Coalition.
I think it started during COVID when I looked at the Diamond Princess numbers, and that showed that all of the Ferguson modeling was wrong. And I very naively and stupidly thought if I could demonstrate, and I wrote to the committee that was handling COVID, and I wrote to some MPs. I said, look, the Ferguson numbers are absolutely wrong, and here's the proof. And Professor Levitt came out with the same calculations. I thought that would be it. But then here we are 4 years later, and you realize there's a much bigger agenda at play. And I opened it up to volunteers. There's been about a group of about 8 of us, pretty well full time now. And I think we've covered almost all elements of the agenda. We look at religious issues, we look at censorship issues, we look at bots, we look at net zero, we've looked at quite closely. So we've covered the whole agenda now. And I'm trying to explain to people what's going on, but not in a I think this, because I'm actually showing the evidence, and I want other people to look at the evidence and then decide for themselves, because I think a lot of people on our side just throw out opinion with no backing, which is pointless, really. It just muddies the waters, really.
Well, it's not just pointless, is it? It actually creates problems for us. This show is really about tackling the dis and misinformation that is put online, whether that's by our so-called our own side or the other side. But here's the thing: is that as one of our commenters pointed out, we certainly needed someone to think during COVID. We certainly did. And the thing is, Alex, it is difficult when you are a front runner of anything, because it sometimes takes people a little while to catch up. So you can appear to be the enemy, the problem maker, can't you, initially, until people go, oh, wait a second, I think he might have been right. And so that's why I thought, let me get hit in early on this, and let's have a look at it. It's about the Department of Government Efficiency. And it's not actually a government department at all, is it? It's the new thing that Elon Musk has been tasked with by Donald Trump. Talk to us a little bit about it, because I have some big questions for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think before going into that department, I think it's just important to emphasize what the selection is really all about. In
Go
my
for it.
book, yeah, it's really a selection. The really important stuff happens between the funders and the candidates. So you've got to remember that $2.6 billion went into the presidential campaign. And, that money was coming in from the uber wealthy. They're putting in 120 million. Those are the key conversations. By the time it gets to us, the voters, we're kind of like nodding through the real deal that's been decided behind the curtain. So that's important, because the real agenda is driven by the moneyed interest. It's not driven, the MAGA crowd are very clear. We don't want wars. We want the border fixed. We want a better quality of life. We want to believe in America. Now, the uber wealthy, they want to get wealthy and they want more power. I think those are the key issues that they have. So, right off the bat, the idea that you're going to cut government spending, certainly in some areas, they're making a lot of money from that government spending through SpaceX and through Palantir, which is that's a whole can of worms, Palantir. So the idea that they're going to cut down spending when these guys are making so much money. So Palantir, for some crazy reason, is worth $150 billion right now, and half of that is from government revenue. Do you think like these guys are gonna sort of bite their own nose off when
Right.
you know that the Palantir shareholders are involved in funding politics? It's all linked, essentially. So, off the bat, I'm kind of suspicious. The other
And I
thing is, of course, that yeah, go on.
Just to say, I think you have every right to be, because as you state very clearly in this article, like every election, this one takes place in two places at once, one in front of the curtain and the other behind the curtain, which is what you just outlined. And that is very important for people to understand, that what we see is not necessarily what we're getting. Right. And so I think that's really important from the get go. But the other thing that I would like you to do before you proceed, and that is just talk a little bit about Palantir, because some people will be listening and they'll have no clue what Palantir is.
Yeah, it's well, I think nobody really knows
Right.
right to the bottom what it really is. But what we know about it, it is quite vague what it does. But it really works for essentially security services and the military. So for the security services, it's a spying operation. So they process mass downloads of images and data and try and work out patterns using AI, and using those patterns that they identify wrongdoers, and they've done that a little bit. Now, the other bit for the military is to do with controlling drones. It's the same. It's the same process, really. It's like ingesting lots of data on images and feeds of videos on a battlefield, and then using that to control drones more efficiently than a human could on his own. That's the other side of the business. And the reason I raised it is because the share price of that thing is exploding right now, and it's almost exactly the day of the election that thing starts going up. And that tells me one thing: you can never know 100% sure, but 99.9% sure. That is telling me the Trump administration is going to be buying a lot of spyware and a lot of AI enhancement of military capability in the next whatever number of years, let's say 5 years. And that for us is a massive red light. If that's the way it is, then you're talking about a much more technocratic, less free administration. And I think that is the really important bit of data. And it's more important than what Bobby says over a nice press conference or any of these other guys. It's like that's a hard bit of information that outweighs, to be honest, what politicians say, which for my money counts for nothing.
Who's the key character involved in Palantir linked to Trump?
The key character is the biggest shareholder, what's his name, Peter Thiel, and he's a business partner with Musk, and Musk put in 120 million into the Trump campaign. Thiel put money into many more candidates than JD Vance. He funded JD Vance's campaign in Ohio, and that helped get JD Vance into his position as vice president. And JD Vance is a former business partner with Peter Thiel. So they're all very closely linked. And well, I worked out, it was a couple of weeks ago, but Peter Thiel had already made $2 billion since the election day personally from this rally. And but it's more now because that share price keeps going up. So yeah, that's a strong incentive not to cut spending on services that they buy from Palantir.
Do we know if Palantir, as one of our commenters is saying, has control over NHS data?
Yeah, that's another huge story because the way that happened was they started their discussions with the NHS. I think it was about July 2019, plus minus. And then what did they do? As soon as this COVID event hit, they said, well, because it's an emergency, you'll have to give us this stuff as an emergency contract, no tender, no nothing. So they did indeed take I don't know, but I don't think I've got the exact number. Nobody's quite sure, but they took over a huge degree of functionality from the NHS. No tender, no nothing. And then they did win a tender that took place not that long ago. But of course, by that stage, they're already in the door, and they're now starting to do more and more for the NHS. And that this is a huge Davos agenda item to take out bits of the government and privatize them to themselves. And it's very worrying in things like health and also military. I mean, to me, it's unthinkable you would subcontract a chunk of your spy work to basically a couple of dudes in Silicon Valley with multiple passports. It's absolutely nuts, and it's really worrying.
Dear God, it is very worrying indeed. And of course, just before we go into Trump's appointments, which of course was what all of this is about, I think it's also important to reflect on what actually happened at the election regarding the tech billionaires and their ultimate rejection right now of wokeism.
I'm not sure that whole thing isn't just a diversion because
Interesting.
between between the big thing about the billionaires and the reason I brought them up is there's almost no difference between the Democrat billionaires and the Republican billionaires. They're
Really?
all
Yeah.
they're all for a start billionaires, obviously, which implies a certain kind of mindset. And they're all more or less in finance and big tech, more or less are um, the two sectors, and they're all from one particular ethnicity as well. So there's a lot of overlap between them, and I'm honestly not seeing big differences in their um, policy policy priorities as far as I can see. I think their main policy priorities will be like keep that spending going to keep those assets valued, and also they've always had throughout history is a desire to have cheap money when they need it. That's the bottom. That's the floor for their assets. So
Interesting.
those are the two things. And then I kind of hinted at they're also all Israel first people. So those
Yes.
will be I think those are the things they care about. I don't think they care about the LGBT, the woke stuff. I think that is a divide and conquer issue for us. I think they'll turn it on and they'll turn it off. I don't think I think maybe for some of them it kind of matters, but listening to their interviews, I really don't think that's a big driver for them. I think they've seen that as a divisive issue for the population, and therefore they use it. But for
That's
themselves
what it is. You're
personally,
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. What they've done is they've acted as a lightning rod to what's going on out there in the wider world, right?
yeah, I don't think they personally care about it. That could be unfair to maybe what let's say the real funding group, the hardcore funders are 25 people. There could be one or two that care about LGBT woke. The
Right.
rest, I don't think they do. And as I said, I think it's more a thing to frustrate, upset, divide the population. I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's
I
really
think
to
this is a
they've taken the brakes off it. They've taken the brakes off that cultural Marxism. That's all they've done. You know, that thing should have the brakes on it, but they just flicked the switch and took the brakes off,
yeah.
and it went wild. But I don't think the funders really care so much about it.
Right. It's all about money. Got you. Got you.
It's
Got
all
you.
about money.
It's all
Yeah,
about money. Well, let's start talking about some of Trump's appointments, which is really kind of the what your article on Substack is about. So, I mean, one of the things that you say, and I think this is really key actually, is about the conflation of America's interest with another country's interest, which is what you've just kind of touched upon right there,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's key, isn't it?
yeah. But it's ludicrous to deny it and to be called, you know, something we know
Yeah.
what we're called, because in 2006 there was a definitive academic analysis by Mearsheimer again. This guy Mearsheimer pops up everywhere. He is the one guy in Washington in academic circles that tells the truth about everything, and he's a very senior professor. And him with another guy from Harvard called Walt, they did an absolutely forensic document in, you know, all of the areas of influence, how it works, who's doing it. And they're saying this is a problem. America should set, you know, America first means America first, not somewhere else first and then America second. And it's a documented problem. And now we've seen it now. It's so obvious now, isn't it? You know,
So
we've seen
obvious.
these guys, there's no point in beating about the bush. They're radical pro-Zionists. They say that openly.
They
And
do.
I think that'll reflect again more the interests of the funding base than the average MAGA guy. The average MAGA guy, he wants peace. I mean, it's always been like that for people. People never want war, but the funders might have different ideas.
Indeed, indeed. Right. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about DoGE. I presume that's the way it's pronounced. So, as we
Yeah,
said, it's not a government department. And of course, Elon Musk was a major part of electioneering and Trump's election, really. And, you know, obviously, Elon Musk was able to galvanize people massively on X, which he obviously acquired. Some people suggest that he acquired it purely for these reasons, but that's not necessarily my understanding of it. But he definitely wants to be at the center of everything, doesn't he? And he definitely wants to be able to control what we're thinking and what we're saying. He's not a free speech advocate, actually. Do you
no,
find him to be a
no.
free speech advocate?
Not at all. And I think you're right. You know, if you think that they paid 44 billion for this thing, I was joking with someone yesterday, like, what kind of adverts do you see? It's some kind of unknown Estonian tires, or, you know, you're not seeing mass advertising on this platform. That I don't see any economic rationale. I mean, there is a little bit of economic rationale, but not for 44 billion. I think
Right.
this, the main purpose of this tool is to influence people. It's a big influence operation. And as I've been saying for years, the traffic on it is mainly fake. And right now it's gone through the roof,
Well, let's
pushing
get into
this.
that. Let's get into
Yeah,
that because that is really interesting, really interesting. So, first of all, I'm going to introduce this. This is from your article. Whenever the people need a hero, we shall supply him. That, of course, is a very famous Albert Pike. And look at this wonderfully flattering image of Elon Musk because they are being pumped out in particular
yeah,
by
yeah,
certain Twitter accounts, aren't they? So let's get to
yeah,
DoGE. The narrative is that Trump decided to create this department, right? Appoint Elon Musk to run it on the 12th of November. And as you point out, firstly, this department won't actually be a department. It won't even be in the government, right? So what is it?
yeah. It's at best, it's an advisory body. That's all it can be. It's nothing really. There's no incorporation of any entity, nothing. It's just a name. It's got nothing behind it.
But this has galvanized people, and this makes people
It's
believe, as
amazing, isn't it?
well, this makes people believe, as your article so brilliantly points out, that people are being listened to, that they are going to cut bureaucracy in the government, right? And and that isn't necessarily the case. So let's talk about all the red flags around it, the artificial traffic that you're talking about. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so big that it's basically a brainwashing operation at this stage. It's so enormous. So there's a number of accounts that are pushing out the meme on the left there. They're into. I'll talk about one of them. DoGE Designer was the one I looked at. So DoGE, the same DoGE, was actually created 3.5 years ago in 2021. So years before this DoGE suddenly became a thing, which was a spontaneous decision, but this account's been created DoGE designer, one word, years ago. So I'm already smelling a bit of a rat with that. It's got 1 million followers, and all it does really is tweet out those things, pictures of Musk like that, and in shades, holding a chainsaw, holding a flamethrower, and pretty boring announcements of X market share in individual countries. So I put in an example in there that they announced that X is the #1 app in Italy, and that got 8.4 thousand likes. And anybody that knows anything about Twitter knows that's an insane number. And I mean, if it got 80 likes, I'd be surprised. Okay, maybe 100, but it's 8.4 thousand. And then Musk automatically replies to that tweet saying, "Hey, that's great." And you've got that sort of double pattern about 350 times. It's like so inauthentic. And then you start looking at the 1 million followers. It's kind of a lot of it's garbage. He's actually reduced visibility. What I used to do, I can't do anymore because you don't have the visibility into the followers or the likes anymore. So you can just guess now. But I've been around enough to know, and I can sample a few of the followers. It's garbage.
And the thing is, I've actually had to mute Elon Musk on X because he's all over it constantly. Every time I log in, he's at the top of my timeline, like
Yeah,
repeatedly. So the biggest customer on X is the owner of X, right? That's
yeah.
kind of like the bottom line, isn't it? He's absolutely everywhere, and you're absolutely right. He's constantly amplifying these messages from this DoGE designer, and they are all very flattering of him, including this flattering picture. As one of our commenters says, I actually almost fancy Elon Musk from that image. Well, that's the whole point. It's all made to look
Yeah.
very nice and very pretty, isn't it, right now? But there are other problems with the accounts that are going on X, aren't there, Alex? Because it's like we are taught there's a flood of fake followers going on there, right? That are
Yeah,
amplifying
yeah,
these messages.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, and this is very clever, people say there's no censorship, which is not true, because the censorship for us is that we're flooded, we're buried under all this garbage. Nobody's ever going to see anything we write with,
Right.
the volume is staggering of these Musk memes at the moment. So I've been doing, I tried to get off Twitter for long periods of time, but I've been doing a couple of tweets now. I'm getting 2 or 3 likes, which is less than under the sort of bad regime from the other guys, much less. So I'm getting far less visibility now than I ever had, well, than I've had for a long time. And he hasn't banned me, but he's just dumped so much garbage on top of all of us that there's no chance we'll ever get any traction on this
Well,
thing.
exactly. Well, as Robert points out in the comments, they did actually tell us, didn't they? Freedom of speech, not freedom of reach, when he
Yeah,
brought in his
yeah,
WEF woman to lead X, which probably should have told us everything we knew at that moment in time. But the thing is that this fake traffic is not just irritating, it is literally problematic. So as you say, it's actually well, not potentially, it is burying true stuff, right? So we are we are all part now of a propaganda platform. Is that what you're saying?
well, I'd go further and say it's brainwashing, high frequency images transmitted at somebody who doesn't necessarily want to see them is brainwashing.
Really?
And, the more you see them, the more you're brainwashed. So it's not, this is not, it's not even that sophisticated. This is like 101 brainwashing, and that's what they're doing.
Right. I see. So here's the thing. Talk to me about the long game. What, because there's always a long game, isn't there? I mean, you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that this was registered 3.5 years ago, right? 3.5 years ago, before this non-government, non-department was set up. And obviously,
suddenly, yeah,
yeah, because Musk is being portrayed as a warrior, right? Fighting your corner. That's the thing,
yeah,
okay?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that's
And
misleading.
that's the important thing. Why I don't trust him, and why it's easy for me not to trust him, is because I think I've got a version of what the long game is,
Go on.
and the long game is something we all probably at some point looked at years ago. Is that famous or infamous Microsoft patent, which ends 060606, and that is for a system, and it's you can literally pull the patent up. I don't want people to think this is conspiracy theory. You can actually, there's a
I've
link in
seen
the
it.
Substack article. Yep, just go, click, look. Don't take my word for it. It's a system where a user sits connected to a server, and the user has wearables or implants that measures that user's brain waves, heart rate, body temperature, blood pressure, etc. And when he is assigned a task, the system can understand whether or not he or she has performed that task. And if that task has been performed, they get credited with a cryptocurrency unit. And I think that's the kind of end game where X is heading. That we are almost there now. We're sitting at this system. Okay, it doesn't pay us yet a cryptocurrency, and we don't have an implant. But who's the guy that's interested in implants?
Yeah,
It's just
that's
another
right.
coincidence that
Elon
he's
Musk,
implant keen. Yeah.
very
And
implant
I'm
keen.
sure, to me, I've looked at it from various angles. I'm really sure that's the end game. It kind of hit me like a ton of bricks one night at sort of 2 in the morning that, oh my, this is where this is heading.
What are your thoughts on Starlink? Our commenters are asking.
Yeah, I need to understand more, because there is an Internet of Bodies, which is another WEF. It's a white paper document. I've been reading it again recently, but of course it's all linked. Once you it's 24/7, messages in and out of your body. The transhuman agenda is you fuse with technology, and
Exactly.
of course Starlink will be again another backbone. So I'm not so sure about Starlink exactly. I mean, of course you need it for the data, but the backbones will be X, which is your sitting at home backbone, and it'll be Palantir for your going outside backbone, because that thing has all the ability to scan everything, process it through AI, and in the worst case scenario, take people out with drones.
This
you
is
know, so
terrifying.
but
This is actually terrifying. I mean, he does I mean, Musk has not hidden the fact that, and they've made this comment as well, is that he wants it to be the everything app, doesn't he? Everything from banking and shopping to social communicating.
well, that is that patent. That is that all you do is sit at that machine with your. I mean, they've added wearables as an option, I think, not to scare the horses, but really they want implants, and the implants are in the patent as well. They want you to sit there with your implants and do your stuff and get your money and buy whatever you need online and have it delivered, and that's you. You're done. You're sitting on your own in your box doing that.
What can we do? I mean, I don't want to be part and parcel of this, but I also see the value of using X with or without reach. What can we ultimately do to protect ourselves?
Well, I think you just be aware, isn't it? So you don't fall for the brainwashing, and I'm better at using it now. I try not to jump on conversations, because the other thing to remember is they don't actually really care how we vote. So that's another thing. It's a penny drop. They don't care that we want immigration reduced for about 30 years now, at least 20 years. They still push it. So they're going to care even less about what you write in a tweet. So don't waste your time jumping on Keir Starmer, you're such a blankety
Right.
blank. They
Yeah.
literally don't care. So you're just burning up your energy and finding yourself in a negative emotional state. It's total waste of time, and you have to try and stop yourself jumping on a tweet chain, because I'm not good at this. I mean, I'm an offender, but I know that it's completely pointless, and they're trolling us. I think most of the time, I think they want those negative reactions. And a lot, and the other thing you got to remember on Twitter, which is important, is that you're always seeing videos cut in half. So like the Manchester the Manchester airport incident, you first got the half where the policeman was stamping on the guy's head. So everybody went crazy from the Muslim community and a lot of people who are against, obviously, I mean, everyone's against that kind of law. It's not law enforcement at that point. But of course, they'd cut out the step before that, which they then released 2 weeks later, which shows the lady policeman having a nose broken. So then everyone goes completely crazy on the other side, and that's also what X is all about. It's all divide and conquer. It's all keeping us at each other's throats. So don't go for that. If you're using it for looking at for data or interacting with people, just ignore the fact or be aware of the fact that wedge issue, putting people at extreme positions is all deliberate.
I was just trying to put up Mel's comment, which I think is a good one. We need to get out more and into reality, away from these parasites. That is the thing.
Yeah.
Is that I think, like I say, I mean, I definitely see the advantages of all social media, but obviously it can be used against us by the same token. My biggest concern, though, is this administration is, as you really accurately portray in your article, about more forever wars, really.
Yeah, I mean, deep state Washington, and I've done a video about this. It is a deep state Washington. It's a merger of arms manufacturers and oligarchs, and they stand behind every think tank. And those think tanks don't even feature as an official number in the political lobbying numbers. They kind of not even included. But that's another whole group of activity. I mean, hundreds of millions. I can actually tell you. I can't remember now, but the top 10 think tanks are also hundreds of millions, and those hundreds of millions are provided by arms manufacturers and oligarchs. And you've got, and they're called things like the Atlantic Council, SEPA is another one, Hudson Institute. They're also lobbying for this war. It's a massive racket, essentially. And it's very difficult to break out of that for ordinary people because we're not in the room even at that point. So
No,
it's a
and we're
problem.
all being directed to be emotional about this and emotional about that, and that's also obviously how it's being used against us. So thank you. I mean, the thing is I think it's absolutely vital. We need to know what's going on behind the curtain, and we hardly ever know what's going on. And that's exactly what you do, and it's done in such a stunning way. Thank you so much, Alex, for your work, because at least it opens up to questions. We need to at least question. If nothing else, there'll be some people who are like, X is so much better than it was 3 years ago. And in some respects it was, but is it really any different than what it was 3 years ago? Because all it's doing is it's picking the subjects you can talk about now that you couldn't talk about 3 years ago. Right. So it's like, I think there's a real problem with Musk being involved with government and running X. I mean, do you think he's going to resign in any way from actually running the day-to-day operations of X?
No, I mean, I go with this George Carlin, I think it was, isn't it? It's a big club and you ain't in it. It
That's
does
right.
look to me all the time like a club. I think the roles and the money and everything else is much more secondary to some kind of club or association or clique or something they're in. I think they're connected as a clique of some sort. And there's never going to be any governance questions like, well, should you be doing this if you're doing that at the same time? I mean, clearly you shouldn't be meddling with government finance if your business SpaceX has taken out $20 billion from the government. You're conflicted, shouldn't
Right.
be anywhere near it. But
Right.
they don't think like that. It's all what, as I said, what they're doing is the opposite of that. They're trying to merge it all together and rip out bits of the government and transfer it to themselves.
Very
So I don't
interesting.
think they're not gonna worry about corporate governance and stuff like
No,
that.
I agree with you. Thank you so much for joining us, and actually for staying longer than we intended. But it's so interesting what you've examined, that I think it was worth it. So yeah,
Yeah, just one thing. I'm doing a phone in on Zoom tomorrow at 6 o'clock UK time, so people can see through Twitter or anywhere that I've put out a couple of flyers about it. So they can go into that as a one-off as well. You can buy a ticket or go through Substack as a paid subscriber.
we will run details of that in the description at the end of the stream, Alex. I'm sure many of our
Right.
viewers will be very interested in taking part in that and seeing that. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This is Alex Creel from the Thinking Coalition, although he is known as Thinking
Right.
Slow
Thanks.
on X. Take good care of yourself. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
What a pleasure. What an
All
absolute
right.
pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Yes, digging deep. We have to dig deep, don't we? Because obviously all the world's a stage. We know that. We know that propaganda is absolutely flooding us from every direction. And just because somebody says they're a good guy, it doesn't mean they are. Remember when Jimmy Savile used to tell us that? Of course, I'm not suggesting for 1 second that Elon Musk is a Jimmy Savile character. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I'm saying he's probably not the warrior that working on behalf of humanity that everybody thinks he is. That's my only position. So how are you all in the comments? I'm going to bring in our next guest very shortly. I want one of them badges. What badges are you talking about? 900 in the chat. Wow. Says, yeah, we're doing pretty well, aren't we, Robert? That's fairly good, I would say, actually. Yes, pleased about that. Thank you all for being here, by the way. Keep thinking slow, Alex. It does you good. I think that's a compliment. I actually think that's a compliment, right? These people are trying to destroy our spiritual balance, and we literally do need to keep touching grass to prevent them, says John from Coventry. What would you buy, Ian? What would you buy? This is funny. Musk is the sort you'd let fix your grandma's TV, but wouldn't let him go upstairs. That's quite funny. I'm sorry, that's quite funny. Talking about funny, let's bring in somebody who is funny. She's Tanya Edwards. Good morning, Tanya. How are you?
Hello, good morning.
How lovely to see you, all windswept and glorious there.
I'm just off the school run, actually, in a bit of a flap, but yeah, here I am.
Well, you look lovely. Thank you for being here with us. You are, of course, an award-winning stand-up comedian. You're a writer of TV and radio. And most recently, you've been involved with this, haven't you? The Bob book. The Bob book. And in fact, I met you the other week in person, although I have talked to you before on Tinternet, but I met you in person the other week at the UK column show, which was great. Did you enjoy that day?
Yeah, I was in my element. I just like selling stuff, I think. It's my inner stall market trader. I was just flogging lots of books. It was a really nice day.
You were doing booming sales there, weren't you? Because everybody wants to because it's a brilliant book, obviously. It's Bob's cartoons from is it the last 4 years?
Yeah, it's a sort of unofficial narrative of the last 4 years. It's a chronicle of all of his stuff. And it's been really interesting putting it together because, as you know, we worked on his show, Apocalypse, for about 6 months. And then it kept getting cancelled. And I think cancellation is a really boring non-starter. You know, it has energy for about 24 hours and then it doesn't actually go anywhere because nothing's made. And he'd always been thinking about putting a book together. So I arranged a launch party and then that was the deadline. So now we have a book and it's really beautiful. So
it is a fantastic book. I cannot say that enough, frankly. I mean, it is just tremendous. I can't even do it justice doing this, but buy it, frankly, buy it, because Tanya is the editor. Bob, of course, is the illustrator, cartoonist, but Tanya is so much more than that. And I think let's talk about being cancelled, right? Because that is the thing that everybody in the public eye is absolutely petrified about happening to them. But as a consequence, people are changing who they are, aren't they, to accommodate these insane demands. Have you changed who you are?
No, I think that's an interesting thing about the book, actually, because it's been published independently. It means that we haven't had to censor it. So yes, I'm the editor, and as much as I've said, don't edit yourself. And I don't think that the public really understand how critical it is. So for example, when we did Apocalypse, we sold out the Bloomsbury Theatre, and then they thanked us for following all of their rules and everything else. It was a big success. And they had 3 empty Saturdays in the January of the next year. And I said we would take any of those evenings, and they declined to host us. And this means that a theatre can afford to stay empty if they're taking enough government funding and they think that you're politically incorrect. And because our culture is saturated with pornography and people are preoccupied by what they're teaching our children, it seems that it's in some ways too laissez-faire. They don't understand that when something's unites lots of people or helps them see the media machine in a different way, those are the stories that aren't allowed to be told, the ones that bring everybody together. Yeah. And it was interesting because last week I was in Ireland for a comedy festival for Aidan McKillick, and I was there last year. It's a fantastic festival. He always sells out all of these amazing shows. But the reason I was there this year is because he was cancelled, or they were trying to cancel him because someone had gone through not what he had said. And by the way, I don't care what you say. You're allowed to change your mind about things. We're supposed to be having a conversation. But someone had gone through what he liked on Twitter, and he had liked a comment that they didn't like or had perceived as transphobic. I don't know if it was a comment or if it was a joke. But what had happened is the women had pulled out of his comedy festival in this sort of big scandal. And before I even knew, what had happened, I said, yeah, I'll help. I'll step in, because I'd already made a decision that, barring anything nefarious, I was happy to help them, because we've got to start working together to turn the tide of the actual industry itself. So I went over and did this show, but in the Bloomsbury Theatre, subsequently to us putting on the show, I was supposed to do a charity gig. This is just an unpaid charity stand-up show for a friend of mine, which I'd done before. And I said, of course I'll do it. And then a few days later, he texted me and said, do you mind if I take you off the bill and I'll put you in another event? And I said, of course I don't, but would you mind if I asked why? And he said, have you been involved in a show at the Bloomsbury Theatre recently? And obviously I had. That was Bob's show. So what I'm trying to say is that they're making it difficult to associate with people. And it's no longer to do with whether or not that person, in comedy, you have people that die on their arse or stink the room out, and you have to jog along with them. But this is no longer to do with whether you're good at your job, or it's to do with whether you have opinions that are considered acceptable. And people don't even really need to know what those opinions are. They just need to know whether they're in fashion. And that's a worrying trend. And it's universal, I think, now. So people are waiting. And what's interesting is that people are waiting. So they're waiting to be told, for example, by Trump that there are two sexes, or they're waiting for someone to stand up and say, yes, I don't think that children should be taught about pornography, or whatever it is that they're waiting for them to say. But while they're waiting until that tide changes, they don't just actively not say anything, but they make it impossible for the people that are saying something. Yes. So it's a strange thing. It's as if they want enough people to say the truth so that they can participate in the truth again. But while the truth isn't, the mot du jour, they're happy to not just lie, they're happy to make it impossible for people to stand on their own or to do something independently. And I don't know how bad things have to get before people have the courage to have their own opinion in advance. Until they have the courage to just say, I don't think that's the way things are, then they're going to be at the mercy of the algorithm. And I mean, yeah.
It's very serious. And I think, we've all seen it, obviously. I've been documenting this kind of decay for a rather long time now. Certainly over the last 10 years, I've seen this creeping censorship all around us. And since 2018, actually 2019, I started making a documentary about the whole kind of gender agenda. And obviously that's where it's so much around. We know that has been used in terms of cancel culture. But what I find really depressing is comedians traditionally highlight disparities in society in ways that are not always, acceptable to us on kind of first flush, right? But that is being denied now. And comedians have always been kind of like on the front line, haven't they, of highlighting injustices?
Well, yes and no. I think that the actual industry has changed a lot. So when I started, I thought it was quite funny. I remember going to a club, and as I approached the microphone, a whole table of men stood up, literally turned their chairs around, sat with their backs to me and started talking, and they talked through my set. Now that was fine because it made me better, because you had to have lots of jokes to withstand that kind of thing, because it's a crowd sport comedy. It's very base. I don't think we need to pretend it's intellectual. It's basically how you win a room of people at once. But it was interesting when I started, because you had promoters and they would sometimes enjoy watching a character that they liked die a miserable death on stage. And they would know that their comedy club could afford it because they had some fancy headliner later. But they actually they were in the business because they loved comedy and they liked certain people that made them laugh, and they were happy to show different things. And it is partially for this sort of positive discrimination, if you like, that they tried to make it easier to get women in. I never thought that was honest.
Got you.
I thought that was an agenda, even then, because it didn't make sense. But the second you had to have people on, not because you necessarily thought that they were funny, but because they were ticking a box, people that did well stop looking at the kind of jokes. So some people tell one-liners, some people tell stories. Traditionally, you just wouldn't have 2 one-liner guys on, or you wouldn't have 2 long anecdotal people on. You would mix and match the actual type of material. And obviously, once you had to mix and match the type of person visually, the superficial element of it, then everything became a bit more conformist. But also, it's that comedy is very cheap. And lots of people go into stand-up because they want to be actors or they want to be presenters. And it's a good opportunity to actually practice, do some work, meet some people while they're trying to get through an audition. And when I started, the actual clubs were where it was at. You had these people with terrific charisma that could smash the comedy store. And it was really moody and exciting. And since it's become more mainstream, and unfortunately, it's attracted some of the wrong people into the club. Yeah. So you can imagine that someone that they've just seen on Sewing Bee or cooking something nice is then going to tell them to get on the fun train. And when they go into a club, it's not actually like that because people are telling jokes. And I think that people have forgotten what they are. Every joke that's really good works because it's making someone somewhere feel uncomfortable. And that's half the laugh.
It's very much like propaganda now, though, isn't it? When you have certain comedians who get to rise up because they are, they're saying all the right things. That doesn't feel at all like comedy.
Well, it isn't. I have a colleague who was made very successful because she was a feminist, and now she doesn't know what a vagina is, and that must be confusing to some people. But it's because she was always an opportunity. And that's fine, but I don't know why these people have a halo of goodness about them or sincerity when it's absolutely insincere. And I also think it's having an alarming effect on the public in terms of social media. I was thinking about this when I was in Ireland because I met up with an old school friend of mine who had liked a comment on Instagram. This is years ago, back when the rubbish was going on. And it was a really amusing act. Who was saying how they couldn't wait to get back into the public and how they couldn't wait to be able to take their mask off. They couldn't wait to get their vaccine. They couldn't wait to be able to speak to people again. And I said to her, listen, this woman's fantastic. She's really hilarious. I know that she is because I was drinking with her till 1 o'clock this morning in a lock-in, but she's certainly not hiding at home. She just performed to 400 people. She's not wearing a mask. She's not waiting for a vaccine. She's certainly not waiting to touch people again. This is a lie. And she couldn't understand why someone would do that, to the point where I think, in fact, she's admitted that she still thought that I must have been wrong in some way. And when I saw her in Ireland, she told me that a friend of hers who'd vaccinated her child, sadly, that child is 13 years old and now has myocarditis. And her friend, who's a 42-year-old marathon runner, also has myocarditis. So she's now come round to my way of thinking, but it's sad that you can't really raise the flag in advance without people thinking that you're mad. Yeah. That's a shame.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go on, Tanya. You think what?
No, I just think that people trust what they see from performers, etc., if it's put in the context of their real life. But all of these things are being done to sell something. They're being done to sell you a product, which is so it's different if you're trying to have lots of fans or lots of likes, then what you're saying should be taken with a pinch of salt. You have to try and look at the people that are consistent and that are prepared to put their head above the parapet. Maybe one day they'll lose some followers, maybe another day they'll gain some followers, but they're being consistent in what they're saying, like Bob, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can maybe accuse Bob of a multitude of things, but inconsistency is not one of them. And I absolutely love that about him. Bob will be with us on Friday, by the way, everybody. And I absolutely love that about him is that he stands strong, but so do you. And I think that what also concerns people is the chilling effect that has taken place, because there is not just being cancelled, but there is the fear of being cancelled. So obviously what is happening is stand-ups are now self-censoring in a deplorable way. This is like a hiding to nothing, Tanya. This can't work in the long term, can it?
No, it obviously can't. And it's a bit like this comedy festival in Ireland. The people that pulled out were worried that if they went ahead, they wouldn't get work. That's not good enough. And I appreciate that people are anxious about, especially because it basically stand-up is something of a humiliation ritual. You work for years for nothing to try and get to a certain level that you can then perform, and for money, and then you hope that your crowd gets bigger. Talking of which, I'm doing a show with Alistair Williams, which everybody must come to on the 14th of December. But
well, two very funny people who are as kind of like, I mean, anti-woke is an unfortunate description, and that's probably not appropriate, but that's the only thing I can think of to say if I lump you both together at this moment in time. How would you describe the pairing of you?
Well, I think we're both still writing jokes, and I'm not really, I'm not really interested in. I think that the woke idea is tedious in as much as I've seen people talk about it or try to be it, and they just describe things. Oh, I saw it as terrible. God, who was he? I fortunately can't remember his name. But I saw this. He was only young, bless him, and he was saying, "Oh, it's great that people can choose their pronouns now. When I was young, I wasn't able to choose my supper." That was it. And people, they don't really laugh, obviously, because it's not funny, but some people, give a half-hearted clap or something to show that they've understood the messaging. And when I started out, if you said a sentence like that, it didn't matter. It wouldn't matter what it was. It wouldn't matter if you declined to tell a joke on a stage in a comedy club. People would get rid of you. They would start talking, or they would call you, and that would be the end of your set. So you would learn the hard way and the fast way that was not good enough. And now people seem able to get away with that. And that's just the decline of a particular strand of performing. I don't think it's just more symptomatic of the times. But it's obviously not fun to watch. It's boring.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, aside from you and Alistair, there's not a great deal, I would say, of British comedians that I could vouch for. I primarily watch a lot of American comedians like Dave Chappelle as one example, because they don't give a stuff, right? And I like that. I want people not to give a stuff. You've got a grimace on your face. What's that about?
Well, firstly, I think a lot of these people probably disappeared when they could have been helpful, but they're not as anarchic.
During C19, you mean, like C19? Yeah, they were all a bit AWOL, weren't they? Ricky Gervais and all of that. They were all AWOL.
Ricky Gervais did not go missing. He was very much promoting the vaccine, so he is enough said about him. But I just think that these people, they wait to be anarchic. It was actually fascinating watching the Trump.
That's a great quote. They wait to be anarchic. That is a great quote. I love that. I beg your pardon. Go on.
No, I was thinking actually when I saw Trump's garbage man speech, I don't know if you saw that, where they wheeled out Biden to call everyone garbage, and then they wheeled out Trump in his high-vis vest. And, he explained basically what the word deplorable meant. So millions of people almost understand now that meant garbage. But I thought it was a very witty speech. I don't think that they're different people. I think it's all working to one agenda. He's a salesman, and if you look at what he's selling this time, it's obviously digital ID. You'd have to be blind to not see it. But he was obviously given a funny speech, and it was in contrast to Kamala Harris, who I think, again, people got used to Biden falling over, spilling ice cream on himself and sniffing children. I think that he was at least quite quiet, whereas Kamala Harris was actively irritating with that horrible cackle and her irritating speeches. So she was... And I thought it was curious because some of the most astute commentators I know, they were so into the Trump propaganda, in as much as they were saying, can't you see that this is obviously the better script? And I don't think that they understood that they could see that it was a script, but they still wanted people to invest in it emotionally. And I do think that this victory, in inverted commas, which people imagine as a victory for free speech, or they imagine as a victory for the normal, which is obviously hilarious nadir if we think that this is, someone who's what were they saying? Oh, he writes his own tweets as if that was some intellectual accomplishment. But it's very sad. But
it's very sad, isn't it? Go on.
I think that this is actually the time where we need to be stepping away from all of these people. If you cannot see that the father of the vaccine is being brought in on a health ticket, if you cannot see that JFK, the enemy of seed oils, is eating a McDonald's in every photo shoot, if you can't see that they're mocking you, that's fine. But at least at the same time, try and build some independence, because I think what's happened is that this has really engaged people that had managed to separate themselves from the media machine.
Yes.
And suddenly all of their energies and all of their cynicism and their skepticism has evaporated. And because if anything, to them, what this looks like is that the system is working.
Yes.
And they cannot see the obvious contradictions. So this often happens with these catchphrases. It's an interesting one with Trump, because he had clear the swamp, didn't he? And then he had swamp the vote. Now, the idea of swamp the vote was that there had been a cheat. Well, it doesn't matter what you think of this. I'm just trying to explain the actual ridiculousness of the assertion. The pitch was that the Democrats rigged the election with the machines, and that all it would take for that to not happen again would be for the voters to swamp the machines. Well, obviously, if you believe that the machines can be rigged, then it doesn't matter how many people turn up. But somehow people have come away from this story thinking both at the same time that the system can be just rigged into as far as you don't count the numbers, but also that you can have so many people there that they suddenly have to start counting the numbers. That's not possible. You can't have both of those things. So I don't know if you've seen the latest ad where he's here to save America, and if Musk hadn't bought Twitter, it would have been the end of democracy. But people can honestly watch this story and they don't understand that he's not an enemy of the state. It is beyond me. I am struggling to grasp that.
Lots of people are. It feels like gaslighting, doesn't it? It really does. I think my position is I've been politically homeless for an awful long time now, Tanya, and I liked the idea, because I think that what's been happening has been so egregious in terms of all that kind of quote unquote woke stuff, which I hate even using that expression, but you know exactly what I mean. But I found so much of it so egregious, and I felt that at least with Trump being voted in and his team, it would kind of slow the roll on that, if nothing else. So I'm always looking for silver linings.
I agree with Yeah, but I agree with you that they've absolutely saturated the public square for years with whinging. And just to have the whinging switched off for a minute in exchange for gloating is a relief. So all of those people that we've had to watch weeping or doing all this rubbish, now that we're watching other people take the mickey out of those people, apparently with impunity, it's a relief, just because nobody likes whining. I hate whining too. But this is, it's all an illusion. You never needed to listen to all of those people whinging, and you don't need to listen to all of these people gloating. The problem is that you're being swept one way and another with catchphrases, and nobody is thinking anymore. And I love it. I can see a comment here. Trump is the best of a bad bunch. No, he's the most amusing in the same bunch. That's the point. They are the same people taking us to the same place, which is digital ID and CBDCs and ill health. It's our modern day soap opera. These comments coming up. It is a soap opera, but we sometimes do. I don't watch TV. I tuck back into it sometimes. Oh, Tucker Carlson. I saw something that he said. He said that you either propagandize, and so people comply like that because they agree with the story, or you force them to comply aggressively, as in with force. And they always explain their method. And we are now at a point where we're either going to be forced to do something, or we're going to be persuaded to do something. But the question that we should be asking ourselves is, what are we going to be forced or persuaded to do, and why? Why? And it's not that you can have faith today in the man that closed down America. People, they want security first. So now that they're not frightened by a story he told them about their about a pandemic. Now that they're not frightened, they want their freedom. But who told you that you should be frightened? And who is now telling you that you are allowed to be free? The same person. So at some point, we're going to have to feel secure in our own health and our own thought processes. And we're going to have to want to be free on that account. We can't keep being told when we should be frightened, because we will surrender our liberties to the exact measure of our fears. So if all of the time that we're believing this news story because it's fun and it's happier today, obviously for other people it's sadder, whatever, but it's all a story coming from the same machine, and we've got to switch it off. I think that's another.
I absolutely agree with you. I think these are all important. I don't know if you heard Alex Creel before you, but he was talking about DoGE and Elon Musk. And again, it's actually very similar to what you're saying. And that is, we're essentially looking for the same people to rescue us who put us in this position in the first place. That's kind of what keeps happening over and over again in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, and also the people that you're happy you don't have to listen to anymore, the whingers who are just begging to kill themselves. Literally, they are in a death cult. They think that it's good and kind to kill their mother if someone says, oh, the mean man doesn't want you to kill your mother. They are already spent. They do not exist as a political force because they can't create anything. All they spend their time doing is asking for stuff and telling other people what they shouldn't do. So they might be irritating, but in terms of power, they are irrelevant because they cannot see power. They can just see what they're told to see. All you have to say to them is someone doesn't like you and they go to pieces. So they are no threat to anyone. They do not make anything. So who still has some generative power? Who can still hold sway in their communities? Who can still produce something? Those people are the people that Trump is there to sell to. The other people that are more attached to their labels, that are more attached to being called left or kind or nice, whatever it is that they want to be called today, those people are irrelevant. The only people that are left to persuade or coerce are the people that want to make something. It doesn't matter what that is. It might be a business, it might be a farm, it might be a book, it might be a play. But the people that want to make something, that physically create something, that have families or communities or do something useful, those are the people that are still to be scooped up. And those are the people that this narrative is supposed to apply to. And what worries me is that those are the people that are buying into this new thing. And that's the problem, because they're the only people left. The people in their death cult are irrelevant. They're not a threat to anybody. But if we all sort of capitulate to this, there's a robin on my patio eating a worm.
I love robins.
I know, they're so pretty, aren't they?
Yeah.
Honestly, there are so many nice things.
There's wonderful things. Yeah, there's wonderful things in this world. I mean, that's the thing. And also, I think that we are incredibly fortunate that we can have this free flow of communication. The thing about what we do around here, and I think it's really important, is that there is no political bias, right? I talk to people who are major Trump fans as much as people who are questioning the narrative, because I think it's really important. I think that's what's been lacking in media. We have media that is either interested in the right side of politics or the left side, and they push their narratives, whereas I'm just interested in hearing what people have to say, and I think it's important, and especially cancelled comedians. So Tanya, leave us on something nice. Tell us something nice.
Wow. There's a beautiful book out that you can buy, so buy Bob's book, and also do come and see Alistair and I, because the nicest thing about doing these book signings actually is that everybody comes along and obviously has a chat and tells their stories, and they all meet up and they have a nice time. And it's the same when Alistair and I do our show at Top Secret. We all go to the pub afterwards. And I think a lot of people have felt isolated over the last few years. And as much as they've seen the world go mad around them, and they feel alone. But it turns out that there are so many of us. And I'm very open-minded, even when I don't sound like it. And as much as I also talk to lots of people that don't agree with me, I think it's interesting, it's important. And I'm not always right, sadly. And it's just good to get together. So yes, Alistair and I are going to be at Top Secret on the 14th of December.
Where's Top Secret?
It's in Covent Garden. We're at the Kingsway one on Holborn. I don't know where I'm pointing as if it's behind me, but So we're going to be there, and it's really good fun. Then afterwards, we go to the Sun Pub on Drury Lane. If any of you want to skip the show and just come for the pint.
That sounds like fun as well. Listen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We truly appreciate it. And the thing is that, you know, what I love is how organically that conversation went. None of us planned to have that conversation that way. We were just like, let's drop it on the table and see what emerges. And I love, there's a synchronicity literally that happens with this show that is not planned at all. And that is literally what you said follows on so superbly from the previous guest. So thank you so much. Truly appreciate that. Everybody, lovely to have you with us. Everybody, the lovely Tanya Edwards. Isn't she lovely, everybody? She's lovely. Absolutely lovely. Take good care of yourself. Have a brilliant Monday.
And you. Bye.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely. How are you in the comments? Still feisty as ever. I see, and I hope. I sincerely hope so. I'm going to be bringing in our next guest shortly. I just want to touch on a news item. Before I do that, let me just find what I was looking for. Lovely people. There's so much news I've got to cover today. And I'm clearly not. I've got to say this, right? And that is have you seen this, everybody? That the church, there's a number 2 Archbishop of York. Let me start that again. There's a second Archbishop that is now being urged to step down. This is the Archbishop of York, right? He's apparently ignored 11 separate complaints. 11 separate complaints. And this, of course, follows the story of Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Justin Welby, I did a standalone video from Friday's show about it. It's available on YouTube. I will put a link. And actually, what it actually shows you is the paedophile, the Archbishop, the King, the Prime Minister, and the establishment supporters who keep it all working very, very nicely. And we have a similar situation. And obviously, Justin Welby was forced to resign because he didn't want to resign. He should have been sacked. He should have been sacked and he should be subject to a police investigation. Really simple stuff, because he knew about a prolific paedophile and torturer within the Church of England. And there'd been an absolute failure to bring John Smythe to justice. They allowed him to die like they always do. And these people are unconscionable. Anyway, there is a second Archbishop, as I say, Archbishop of York. And this is really serious what's being said, right? There was an independent investigation which was conducted by Dame Jasvinda Sanghera. And she said that she had repeatedly raised concerns with Archbishop Cottrell and Justin Welby. And they had both failed, right? She said, I sat down with both archbishops, poured my heart out, saying we need help. It went unheard. They have chosen to look the other way. They sure have. They sure have. Well, the Church of England was busy allowing everybody to see all the paedophiles within the Catholic Church. They didn't want you to see what was going on within their midst. And that is the reality, right? That is the reality, what has happened. And they're now saying that Justin Welby may lose his seat in the House of Lords. Big whoop. Big whoop. Whether he stays or whether he goes, he will still be surrounded by very similar like-minded people. That's the reality. And, Sanghera said at every point when we tried to get them to listen, we were ignored. There are people who are still in place who need to be held to account. It's absolutely abhorrent that we are allowing this to happen. Abhorrent. Justin Welby originally assumed the role of Archbishop of Canterbury in 2013. And as I explained on Friday, Justin Welby felt that he didn't need to do a great deal because Smythe had apparently been reported to police. Well, as I explained on Friday, who was in charge of the CPS in 2013? None other than our sitting Prime Minister, a man who the word secret seems to have a resonance with. Right. Let us move on. I want to talk about that picture, by the way, that Tanya referred to, the Make American Healthy Again picture. And I want to use the tweet of lovely Ben Rubin from UK Column, who has given me his permission, but I will do that after our next guest. And this is going to be proper interesting because I'm looking to learn some new things here. So let us bring him in. Let me find him first of all. Because I have notes everywhere. Here he is. His name is Ben Hawkes. He's from the Wake Up podcast. Hello, Ben.
Grand Risings. How are you?
Grand Risings. Hey, somebody understands. Thank you so
Indeed.
much for being here, Ben. So you also do Wake Up, Ben. Should we have a fisticuffs about this?
No, it's okay. I don't think intellectual property has any place in the in the
I
new world.
completely agree with you. That's
So-
really interesting you say that. Can I just say that I mentioned Ben Rubin, and Ben Rubin's first approach to me, I used to run a show called Rise, and Ben Rubin's first approach to me was, I think we both do something called Rise, and I, my intention is to raise awareness and blah, blah, blah. And hopefully,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing, hopefully we won't step on each other's toes. And no, absolutely not. We can all coexist side by side if we are on the same page, right?
Well, 100%. And this is one of my bugbears with the quote unquote freedom movement. And by the way, none with Ben Rubin, who's an incredibly smart,
He's
intelligent,
wonderful,
and incisive
brilliant.
man. I've interviewed him twice. He's a good lad. And I always read his Substack when it comes out, because there's a lot of people offering solutions for the brave new world. And Ben is someone who's actually thinking about solutions and offering them up in an actionable way. But one of my bugbears about the freedom movement is this habit that people have of setting out their stall and trying to own real estate and owning a little bit of the narrative, and starting their club and not wanting to work with anybody. And I'll say this to anybody when we get onto the subject we're going to talk about, Lay Love Down, or whatever we're going to talk about. I am always happy to work with everybody. I'm very aware there are people who have been in this space that I'm in, the spiritual ley line intention space, for, well, maybe hundreds of years. Some of the people I've met on my journey in the last year have possibly been in this materium several times. But what we should all be doing is be absolutely willing to work with everybody.
Yes.
Because what unites us is far bigger than what divides us. And there's a lot of people, I call it the people's front of Judean people's front problem, who are willing to fall out over wafer thin bits of the dialectic.
Right.
It's absolutely crazy. So no, the wake up is yours for however long you want it.
And yours too, my brother.
And we're all good.
We're all blooming good. We absolutely are. Hallelujah to that. I completely concur.
Hallelujah. You're going to say hallelujah after your polemic against the Archbishop of York and the Church of England just then.
Hey, listen,
Be
nobody
careful.
owns words. We all have, because hallelujah means something completely different to me. Then I'm not religious. I'm no more religious than I am political, but I've grown up with it. So culturally, I use the word hallelujah to express gratitude and praise
100%.
of something wider and bigger than a bloody archbishop who didn't tell us that a nonce was existing.
Well,
right?
I'll tell you what, I'll tell you a funny story. I won around £3,000 betting on the Archbishop, betting on Welby, because I had inside information that he was going to become the Archbishop.
Wow, you won
of
300
Canterbury.
quid, did you?
I did. I put down 2 bets, both of them in betting shops, one in Notting Hill and one, I think, in Maidenhead.
Yes.
And I made about 3,000 quid because somebody told me he was going to be made Archbishop.
Yeah.
And I managed to get Labrooks to sell me a bet.
Good work. And yes, in the comments, I absolutely agree, working together. What I won't work with is a compulsive liar, right? Because I see a certain name that's cropping up that I will not work with a compulsive liar. Right. Don't worry, Ben. Ben, we are very straightforward and honest around here, right?
Good.
And that is, my commenters speak very directly to me and I speak very directly back to them, because I think we've been subject to so much subterfuge and lies that I really believe in straight talking. Right.
Well, we don't have to be nice to be good people. And it's a big thing. People think everyone has to be nice with everybody. And if you're a spiritual person, you have to kind of be in love all the time, which means being a walkover. It's absolutely not. The most spiritual people I know are warriors. And what we need right now is warriors. It would appear you're one too, Sonia.
Oh,
so
I am.
Kudos to you.
Unashamedly so. Absolutely. I'll take anybody down if I have to. Right. So listen, on that, and I'm all of 5'4". But it doesn't matter because my attitude far outweighs my actual stature. Right.
My wife is 5'6", and I don't fancy my chances in a boxing ring. So
well, we're crazy, aren't we? We have Napoleon syndrome, us small is. So listen, Ben,
Indeed.
Let's talk about what you are here to talk about, right? Which is ley lines. I met a lovely lady called Andrea the other week, and she suggested talking to you. She's very interested in ley lines, and I actually met her at a breakfast in Royston in Hertfordshire. And I have an understanding that Royston in Hertfordshire is one of the potential central places of what we actually are going to talk about right now in terms of ley lines. Right, so let's do that. Ley lines. Anybody not familiar? There will be some people logging on, because I come originally from the mainstream, Ben. So there'll be some people logging on. They've never had an opportunity to explore a topic like this, which is even more exciting. So talk to us about ley lines. First of all, what are they?
Well, ley lines ultimately energetic lines. If you want to think about the earth as a body like ours, we have chakras, we have meridians, and ley lines are the meridians of the earth. They're the energy lines of the earth. we have something like 13 to 16 bodies, from the physical up to the emotional, the astral, etc., etc. The Earth has the same, because we are a microcosm of the Earth. So ley lines are part of the Earth's energetic body. It's how it sends information around and how it stores information which we can access.
What does that mean in real terms? Are they
It's
all in a
just,
straight line?
well, one thing I'm going to make very clear: I may be the co-founder of a spiritual movement that's trying to save the world through the mechanic of going onto ley lines and singing and being joy, but I am by no means an expert on ley lines. You say you used to be mainstream. I used to be mainstream as well. I woke up in March 2021. And the way I woke up is just absolutely ridiculous in the context of the spiritual warfare that we're going on. So I'm not an expert on ley lines, and nor do I sell myself as one. What I am an expert on is putting together movements to get people to do stuff. I've been a salesperson for about a quarter of a century. I don't like saying it because it sounds really annoying and something like an American might say, but ultimately I'm an entrepreneur. I start businesses. 20% of them work, 80% of them don't. So I like to start things and make shit happen. Am I allowed to swear on here?
No.
Okay.
but we'll get away with that.
Fantastic. But what ley lines are ultimately are the skeletal system of the Earth. And there's going to be people in the comments saying, no, Ben, that's absolutely not correct. But what I'm going to state is my understanding that gets me through the day. Ley lines are the skeletal, energetic skeleton of the Earth, and they have to be in balance. And the thing about the people that we're fighting, the people who would seek to be our masters, who soon will not be, is they like to take things which are good. They like to take things which are love, which are light, and reverse them. That's ultimately what Satanism is. It's inversion at its most base definition. And ley lines carry energy, they carry ideas, they carry whatever, they can carry bad stuff as well. And the reason I started on this path and started Lay Love Down was a lady called Rachel Vaughan. Now, Rachel Vaughan is a survivor of a certain type of abuse, which is abhorrent, which is disgusting, which is dark, which is evil. And I met her back in December 2022. I've been doing my podcast for about a year and a half. I was having some fun. I was speaking to interesting people, but I didn't feel like I was making a difference. And I figured we were in a spiritual war, and that if you're in a spiritual war, there is a thing called evil. And Sun Tzu said, if you can understand yourself and your enemy, you'll never perish in 1,000 battles. I've probably messed up that quote, what he says. And what I wanted to do was understand the nature of evil. So I was told to speak to Rachel Vaughan, who's been through some stuff. Her dad was the Australian Jeffrey Epstein, if you can imagine it. And Rachel was used from the age of 2 to create compromising material on people in positions of responsibility in Australia. Heads of government agencies, judges, archbishops, probably. And I sat down with Rachel for an hour and a half back in December to understand her experiences. And we did it in a way that had, I suppose, journalistic integrity. We didn't want to do it in a way that was going to be tabloid or sensational. We just talked about her experiences, and it was some pretty salty stuff. And we didn't like it very much at all, but we got it down because we wanted to create a record of what had happened to her, so that when the people write the history of this time, they could listen to it and go, wow, they really got into some dark, dark stuff. And one of Rachel's points was that the ley lines have been used by people who are pushing dark agendas, ultimately to charge the Earth. And again, we're part of the Earth. We're all energy, baby, with bad juju, with humbug, as we call it internally at Lay Love Down. So when she was abused, when these rituals took place, they generally took place on portals or crossings of ley lines.
Right.
So places like Royston, you might find are centres of abuse. And when she spoke to me, she was kind of coming out of the disclosure part of her career, as it were. She was a bit fed up with talking about what she had been through and how she'd been abused and what her father had done to her and all these sorts of things. And when we pressed stop, we got talking about ley lines. Yes, Rachel Vaughan is a crazy story, Wade. Absolutely, 100%. She's a warrior. She's very, very cool.
A lot of our commenters are familiar with her story. I'm familiar with her story as well.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. So this is the interesting thing, right, is that these people who carry out this abhorrent abuse, which is, I can't even begin to comprehend it, and I unfortunately have to cover a lot of it. They understand the power of these places, right?
They do. They do. They understand the power of these places. They understand energy. They understand symbolism. And if you go to any kind of venue where there is great energy runoff or energy explosion, let's say, you'll always find they're on a ley line. Ultimately, you can go to build a church, let's say, or a hospital or a school or a stadium or anything like that, you have to go to the council and you have to ask. Now, I don't have proof of this, but I'll bet my bottom dollar that somewhere in that organization is somebody who knows where the ley lines are and will only say yes when they're happy about the placement of that site. Things like churches. I didn't know this, but a wonderful man called Trevor Wee, who's a adoptee First Nations in Australia, who's one of our knowledge directors, he told me that church doors open onto ley lines to accept the energy in. And that's just a wonderful piece of trivia about the power of these lines. Hospitals create good energy, they create bad energy. There's life, there's death. All of that gets sucked into these ley lines.
We're so out of tune, though, aren't we, with our natural instincts, because we have actually been dumbed down. And obviously, the education system, mainstream education system, is a huge part of that, because it's about compliance.
Yes.
It's about, very kind of basic standard stuff, the 3 R's, all that kind of stuff, right? And doesn't allow for spiritual fulfillment in any way. And that's always been a major part of my life with raising a child, for example, as I wanted my daughter very much to be in touch with her spiritual understanding, because it's a huge part of it. But so many people aren't. And so many people see any talk of spirituality or anything that you're talking about now as just woo-woo, don't they? What do you think that is? Do you think that's ignorance, embarrassment, or what?
I think it's ignorance that's bred from terror, ultimately, because the people who have created the system in which we live are genuinely scared of us. And they're genuinely scared of us because we're a spark of the divine. We're a fractal of God or light or love or whatever you want to call it. And that terrifies them. If you go right back and you think about the original Gnostic story of Adam, they made Adam and they woke him up. And they couldn't wake him up because they lacked the power of creativity. They lacked that power of animus. So Sophia came down, gave him a bit of God, and Adam suddenly became revolutionary. He started telling his elders and betters just to foxtrot Oscar. And that's what they're terrified of us realizing our power. And our power ultimately, not to be too woo, but I don't care. If you go on LinkedIn and follow me, you'll understand exactly how much I don't care. We are a spark of the divine. In a soul body, trapped into a physical body, and we're running around this materium. And the very minute that 5% or more of us understand that and start to live it, we are done. Everything is done. And that's why people are terrified of this spirituality eking in. And Trevor Wee, this elder, I interviewed him on my podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he's really into early years education, especially in the context of spirituality. And the one thing he hates is when parents start beating imagination out of children.
Absolutely. So do I.
Imagination is wonderful. Creation of stories is wonderful. But if you are a cynical man, you might say that imagination, well, it's just one step from lying, isn't it? It's making stuff up. But that's not the reality. It is nonsense.
It's absolutely divine. Imagination is part of our creativity, which is absolutely divine. And I will fight anybody about that. I suspect this is lovely Andrea, who I met and who recommended you. And she's saying Royston, Hertfordshire. Now, what is in Royston, Hertfordshire? Well, this is in Royston, Hertfordshire. This is the Royston Caves. Now, can you talk to us about the Michael and Mary lines?
The Michael and Mary line is a line that it's around 45 degrees from St. Michael's Mount, which goes across the country and fires through Norfolk. And there's one it meets, I think, going through London. It's got what I love about the Michael Mary line. It speaks to me of the mythology of dragons, of King Arthur, etc., etc. And I say mythology like it's made up. To be perfectly frank, I don't believe it's made up. And the Michael Mary line is almost a tour of everything we want to believe about this fair isle. And if you believe what you hear on the internet, and there are things I believe and I don't, this place is ultimately the venue. We are it. We are in the center of the battle. It is no coincidence that when you walk this land, you just feel that history. It's incredible. I took my daughter to see Dragon Keeper yesterday at the cinema, or the Similar, as she calls it. And she sat there watching this wonderful film about dragons, about chi, about power, about good, about evil. And she's enraptured by it.
Fabulous.
And there's this bit at the end, and the baddie turns into some sort of satanic figure. And she turns to me and says, "Daddy, I'm scared." And I said, "Don't worry, just keep remember that good always wins. And what's wonderful about the Michael St. Mary line is that it just has that. It has that battle of good and evil. And I apologize to anyone who wants to hear the detail of it. I'm not the detail man. I'm the guy who gets people to stand on hills and say, go do the thing.
And I love that. I love that. And you don't claim to be anything else. In fact, in one of your introduction of the Wake Up movement, you say you're a master of knowing something about nothing and nothing about everything. I love that. We need those people too. Now, but the thing about the Michael and Mary line, so I understand it, is that Royston Case is one of the few sites where the Michael and Mary line is said to cross over. Is that accurate?
I'm genning up the map in my head, and I'm going to say yes, it is, because there is a point at which it is intersected by a bigger vertical, and that makes it powerful. Ultimately, think about the M25 writ large. I'm fairly sure the M25 was designed by Satan as a loosh machine, but if you think about the energy that thing creates with all that movement and all that energy. Think about the two biggest ley lines in this country, this mythical, wonderful place with all this suppressed power. It makes absolute sense that a convergence of those two is going to be powerful. And where there is power, you're going to find evil. Because the great thing, I suppose it's great to understand the narrative here and what's going on. The thing about evil is it cannot create. That's why you see the same thing again and again and again. You can see it with false flags. Check out the work of Ollie Damagard. There are always these markers that you see because evil cannot create. And it can't create because you go back to the Gnostic creation myth. Again, myth, there's that word, of Sophia coming down. Sophia, who sat to the right of Christos, part of God, sat down and had to lend her creative power to Aldebaoth, the false god, to actually make us. So anytime there is power, you're going to find evil trying to co-opt that power.
Absolutely. I always have the devil on my case. No doubt about it. And I'm in no doubt about that whatsoever. So here's the thing, right? Obviously, you have a lot of people, not a lot of people, you have people who say there is absolutely no scientific proof of ley lines. But then you have a whole lot of other people who say not only do they exist, but we have maps and charts of them. They are very powerful. And there are specific dates of the year when they're at their highest power. Break that down for me. Are there specific dates?
Well, yes, there are. There's something called the harmonic convergence, or the convergence of the lays. And if you want science, go to a guy called Rory Duff, who's written extensively on this subject, and he's got 1 foot in the woo, 1 foot in the science. He's a biologist, a geologist. Sorry. He lives around the corner in Somerset. I'm in Somerset here. So if you want science, go there. But I would say science ultimately is the study of God's creation. And anytime I'm speaking to a scientist about that always stumps them. For me, that's what science is. But I suppose, need to get out of belief and get into knowing. And we need to trust ourselves. And I've been told this a lot. We need to trust what's happening in here, because that's the way we perceive and intuit what's going on in the world. Now, I've seen a ley line. So, and that sounds a bit woo, that sounds a bit crazy, but I've seen a ley line. And Rachel taught me how.
What is it?
It's a shimmering circle of light. That's what it is. You can perceive it floating above the earth. It's a shimmering disc of light. And I've seen it several times now. And I've always seen it at times when I needed to be shown something. So I'll tell you a story, and hopefully my car insurers aren't listening to this. But I was on the way to London to have a meeting. The kind of meeting I used to love, this restaurant that used to be used by Winston Churchill, speaking to people about money, kind of thing I used to like, but I cannot stand now. And I felt itchy about going to this thing, and I'm going down the M4, not feeling good. I get to a station. I'm going to say a generic station just because somebody might place where the accident happened. And I'm looking for a parking space to get on a train and going to London. I couldn't find one. We're in 4 car parks. And eventually I think I find one. I take a left and I scratch this post. I make this massive dent in my car. It's a Land Rover Discovery. I'm just giving it back in January. They're not very happy with me, but there it is. And I phone my wife and I start gabbing about what's happened to me. And she's like, Ben, I do not care. Fine, that's love. So I start going down the M4. I realize I'm not driving very well. I get on the A4, a smaller road, and I'm listening to Positive Pam talk about astrology, thinking, what the hell is going on today? And then on the right-hand side, I see a sign, and that sign is for Avebury. And coming back to the Michael Mary line, Avebury is a very important node on that line. So I think, okay, maybe this is why this is happening. So I park up my car, walk to Avebury Stone Circle, and I'm stood there wearing my suit, sat on a stone, meditating, wondering what the hell people are thinking of me. And then I see it. I see for the first time my first ley line. And I take a picture of it. I turn around, check my 6, as Rachel has taught me, take a picture, put it on our group, say, guys, what do you see? And then I looked at the picture, and there it is, clear as day. It's my first ley line. Now, Universal Spirit had to crash my car to get me to go to Avebury to see my first ley line. But talk of proof, talk of evidence, these things are important, yes, but they are stepping stones on a journey to knowing. And what anybody listening kind of wanting to dip their toe in this kind of area is you have to trust yourself.
Absolutely,
you have to trust
do.
yourself.
First starting point. None of this is hard for me. My mum was a medium and I grew up around a seance table. So I have no
Right.
difficulty whatsoever in imagining a world beyond these restrictions around us, right? I've literally been, you could say I've been groomed in that way. You could.
Let's not. We were talking about the Archbishop of Banterbury. Let's not use that
But
word.
you know what I mean? It's like, to me, it's absolute second nature. So I don't think these things are poo-poo. Absolutely not. And I'm absolutely aware that there has been a disconnect between our true spiritual selves. So that's why I'm always welcome on guests like yourself. I think it's really important. So here's the thing. What powers can we ourselves generate by being in the presence of a ley line?
Do you know AJ Roberts? Have you heard of him?
Yeah, AJ's been with us before.
He's been on, fantastic.
Yeah.
So I haven't been to one of his events, but our project director in Ley Love Down, a lovely lady called Michelle, has been to about 2 or 3, and they regularly blow the power at whatever venue they go to. They will blow the light bulbs. They will blow the mains.
That's interesting.
Now, I saw AJ a couple of weeks ago down in Grimsby, or Cleethorpes actually, and we were talking about what he was up to, and he never plans anything. It just comes in terms of where he's meant to be and when he's meant to be doing something, which is an approach I completely respect and understand. And I've started running my life that way as well. So what's my point in saying this? Whenever he does an event, he always does it on a ley line. And he always does it on a ley line for a reason, because the power we generate anyway, we are batteries. That's why these people are so interested in putting us in a box and living off us. There's a reason that cities look the way they do. They're circuit boards. They're there to siphon off energy. So if you can imagine the human battery they're so interested in prisoning, plus the power of the earth, there is absolutely nothing we can not achieve. And that's why Ley Love Down, to me, is the main event. You can keep your tax strikes. It's cool. The tax will still be there. Council tax will still be there. No judgment. Crack on. Fight the system any way you can. Protest. The people who were there in 20 and 21 told me the reason protests were wonderful was because they realized they weren't alone. But protest as a means to promote change, frankly, I'm not a fan, because they're really as energetic siphonings. What we're trying to do,
good point. Yeah.
Ultimately, and I wish I was there at the protest, but I don't wish I was there to protest.
Right.
You know, you remember the Stop the War Coalition. It was the biggest protest in UK history. It achieved precisely nothing. I was on the criminal justice bill marches back in 93, 94. It was great. It achieved precisely nothing, because it's just part of the political landscape and the game.
Right. We just have to be careful where we're using our energy, because our energy is our power, right? That's what you're saying.
100%. So what we're trying to do is get people out onto the land, onto the leys, onto sacred sites, which are places we have forgotten their power, and we've forgotten our power. Exactly, Milford. That's exactly why they do that. We go into a cell, they charge us. I love a bit of common law, even though I've kind of slagged it off there. But what we want to do is put people on the land and rediscover their power, and do it together, do it in love, do it with goodwill. It doesn't require any physical competency. You don't have to be worried about going to a protest because you might get beat up by the police state. We just want people to get into groups, be in love, be in goodwill, get onto ley lines and sing. And the reason we're doing it, you don't have to sing, by the way. You can meditate, you can play instruments, you can dance. My daughter, my angel tuner, she plays them all the time. I've got a ley line at the end of the garden, which again I found after a spiritual experience akin to my Avebury car crash. But we just want people out on the land, healing the land. And if we heal the land, we'll heal ourselves. And again, if I sound woo, I don't care, because we're in a spiritual battle here. We're in a spiritual world war. It's the last war if we get it right. And what we're trying to do We're not trying to raise the vibration. That's probably the wrong nomenclature, but we're looking to balance the lays, because the Earth has become bogged down with this dense negative energy, and everybody can feel it. It's like the end of, it's like Ghostbusters 2. Remember the end of Ghostbusters 2? All that nasty energy.
Oh,
No.
yeah. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah,
that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to animate the Statue of Liberty. Unfortunately, Statue of Liberty's Lucifer, but we won't go there. We're trying to animate. Right. We're trying to animate the Statue of Liberty to act as a lightning rod for people's positivity. That's ultimately what we're trying to do at Lay Love Down.
And that's a perfect note to end on. But Rachel wants to know, you're going to Australia in December.
Am I going? No, I'm not. I have a newborn son, so I'm not going anywhere.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I've been up since 5 a.m. looking for something called a nipple pad, and I've not found anything. Yuri Bezmenov's right.
Yeah.
The demoralization of the world is almost complete, where you can't find a nipple pad in Southwest.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting to know. I didn't know that at all. Anyway, but we will put a link to your work, to Lay Love Down. It's called Lay Love Down, isn't it?
It is leylovedown.com.
You are a coach as well, obviously, and also the Wake Up podcast that people can. You're a busy man with 2 children as well. Gosh, you are very, very busy. It's 2 children, isn't it? It's not 3, is it?
It
right.
is 2.
Listen, Ben, it's been a pleasure having you with us. And I like the fact that you can be so self-deprecating, because I think the problem about this world is everybody claims to know everything. And one of the things around here is we like unpacking. And oftentimes I am informed by what my commenters are saying live. We have some incredible people. We also get trolls, obviously, because everybody will. But we also have incredible people and incredible minds in our live chat who often, they are able to supply me with missing pieces. And I've really enjoyed this. And so has many of our viewers. Soul Sound gives you lots and lots and lots of hearts.
Thank you very much.
This is Ben Hawkes, new daddy, and all about ley lines. Yes. And as I say, I love the fact that Ben doesn't claim to know it all. We're all learning, aren't we, Ben? We're all on a learning curve. All good stuff. Take
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you with us. Everybody, Ben Hawkes, go well to you too. And there you go. And yes, I am absolutely aware that is not everybody's cup of tea. I know that. Farmers are protesting tomorrow, Robert. I've already given details of that. That's absolutely right, in Westminster. And Andrea said it's about understanding, being aware of things like common law. Absolutely. We have to, I love this, really important. Yes, we have to remember how powerful we are. It's our energetic force that will take the bad guys down. And the thing is, Hamish, what's this? My Irish granny was a medium. We would laugh when she'd be telling us, quick, hide the cards, the priest is coming. The gift is real, 100%. And look at that. And that's why they want us 6 feet apart. Very profound. Yes. And so here's the thing. Maria, the whole woo-woo concept was propaganda to direct people away from their true nature, using Newtonian science to back up a materialistic worldview when Newton himself was actually an alchemist. Interesting. So here's the thing about me is that as you know, I'm open-minded. I'm not so open, obviously, that my brains will fall out, because that would be ridiculous. But I'm open-minded to other people. And ley lines have always interested me and continue to interest me. And I do believe that we have been absolutely separated from our true natural power of nature, which is why they keep trying to capitalize on nature, obviously. So yeah, really interesting. And Royston Caves, I must visit. Right. Let us look at some news, people. Let us look at some news. Been busy day already, and we're already at 10 to 11. And I don't think I'm going to get through everything here, but I'm going to do my darndest. Yes, I am. Let's see what is important and what is a priority here. I want to move next to so much going on. I see that the Telegraph is suddenly a champion of free speech, printing articles about our rights and claiming to be front and center of a fight back. Please spare me. Oh, yes, please spare me. It's a filthy establishment rag that shat on cartoonist Bob Moran from a great height when he spoke out about the C-19 lies. And as I say, talking of whom, Bob will be with us on Friday, and no doubt he'll have something of himself to offer up about the Telegraph's newfound conscience, as if. And so the reason that Telegraph has suddenly become front and centre is because of this story involving their columnist, Alison Pearson. And Alison Pearson claimed that not Sunday, not yesterday, but last Sunday, she was visited at her home by police who told her that they were there about a non-crime hate crime. Now, there was some confusion about this because Alison, being a Telegraph columnist, has managed to have her story everywhere. Mainstream media have lapped it up. They love this story involving an actual Telegraph columnist. The only problem is it doesn't appear to be entirely accurate. How about that? What about that? Right? The Telegraph, by the way, is only now promoting free speech because somehow its owners and establishment friends will benefit from it. The Telegraph is not on our side, absolutely not. And what happened with Alison Pearson, apparently, is she said that the police had arrived and said that they had come about a non-crime hate crime. The police have said that is absolutely not true. And they've doubled down on it and gone so far as to report the Telegraph to a watchdog. This appears to be online alarmism. Now, don't get me wrong. I have been following non-crime hate crimes for about 4 or 5 years, and they are absolutely wrong. People who were talking out about the gender agenda have been visited by police saying, although this isn't officially a crime, you are now down on a list and it will be problematic because if people want to employ you in the future, it will be down that you are, involved in a hate crime. So these are horrible, horrible things. So what we don't need is establishment newspapers and establishment hacks using it if that isn't really what happened. And it does appear that isn't really what happened. So let me tell you what does appear to have happened. The police said at no point did they say to Alison Pearson that they were there about a non-crime hate incident. At no point. They have body camera to prove it. They put out something of a transcript. And actually what they said they were there about was a tweet of hers, which had also been mirrored by somebody else calling themselves Alison Pearson, but her tweet in which there was, I think, 2 people with a Pakistani flag, not Palestine. And Alison Pearson's comment was about the police with these 2 people, like, how dare they look at this lot smiling with Jew haters. Well, that is actual straight up defamation of 2 people who may be entirely innocent. So that's straight off. But the police are not involved in defamation because that's a civil matter. What they're involved with here is that she may be responsible for stirring up racial hatred online. That's not a non-crime hate incident. Oh, no, it's not. That's a whole other story. Yes, it is. And so anyway, they've all doubled down on it. And now the Telegraph are trying to pretend to us that they are on the side of free speech. No, they're not. They're not at all. You see, what I think all of this tells us is rather a lot about the Israeli lobby, right? About how the Telegraph is, compromised by the Israeli lobby. And as I say, Alison Pearson has had immense media coverage about this all across MSM, all across social media, and yet absolutely the police dispute her version. Because believe me, if the police had gone there about a non-crime hate incident, I would absolutely support her down to the ground, but not about this tweet, because this tweet looks really, really problematic. So let's just have the truth on this, because this is the problem that's happening on social media right now, is I don't know who's telling the truth. And a lot of the people from the big accounts, and certainly the anonymous ones, appear to be very tricky indeed. I'm not convinced that they are who they are claiming to be. Essex Police said that officers went to a residential address, which was Alison Pearson's, to arrange a time to do an interview with a woman about a complaint made by a member of the public. Now, we can all have discussions about how right it is to be, interviewing people about tweets and any of that stuff, right? But the point is, don't mislead us. Don't get all of this, galvanize people on a potential lie. And the police are really calling out the Telegraph and Pearson and saying, this isn't true, what we've been told. This is a fake account of events. And we need to know the truth. Yes, we would. And the police said, as the public would expect, we have body-worn video of this interaction, which entirely supports our position in this respect. At no stage, they said, at no stage during the interaction was this woman informed that she was being investigated or treated as a non-crime hate incident. To suggest otherwise is wholly inaccurate and misleading. God, who would imagine that the Daily Telegraph would be wholly inaccurate and misleading? So people have to be really careful. Certainly, I have reservations when I see that the Daily Telegraph are suddenly, trumpeting that they are leading free speech. Not at all, right? I have very serious reservations about anything that comes from establishment newspapers. And you know what? Guess who's been in the mix of the Daily Telegraph since 1996? The weasel of British media himself, Andrew Neil. He had a role of editor-in-chief at Press Holdings, owned by the Barclay brothers, who own the Telegraph and who also own the Spectator. Neil was also chairman of the Spectator because it's a big club and they're all in it, but me and you aren't. Earlier this year, Neil expressed very serious concerns about a deal that the Barclays were considering with an Abu Dhabi investor to take over the Spectator and the Telegraph. Neil said that the deal could limit free reporting. Bloody ha. This is a man who during C19 literally went in the pages of the Daily Mail and said that it was time to isolate the unvaccinated. That's who Andrew Neil is, right? And so the thing is, it's absolutely hilarious that Andrew Neil thinks that he's some kind of champion of free speech, right? If you think of our political system and the useful idiots who populate it, we know that we don't actually have free speech in the UK. We don't. In September 2024, Neil resigned as chairman of the Spectator following the acquisition of the magazine by Paul Marshall, who used to be Andrew Neil's boss at GB News. The Barclays regained control of the assets after paying a 1.2 billion debt to Lloyds last year. And they say that they intend to transfer the titles to Abu Dhabi investors. Now, it's difficult to find out whether that has actually happened or whether Andrew Neil is still at the Telegraph. But from everything that I've discovered, it would appear that he is. So those are the hands. That is the prism in which this information or so-called free speech is coming through, right? And then Toby Young, who runs the Free Speech Union, he's the man who literally appears to only take on cases of people that they like. Toby Young is still very much part of the British establishment. He's one of those people who use COVID to act as if they're on the side of freedom. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, which, looking at the chunk of him, wouldn't be very, very far. And he wrote a piece for the Telegraph, I think it was this weekend. Policing hate speech is just the latest method of enforcing left-wing orthodoxy. Don't trust him. Don't trust the Telegraph. Do not trust the accounts that we have been told, right? And I am deeply concerned about what's going on social media, about the sheer volume of lies that is being told. There's this one account that started up only in October this year, right? So literally probably a matter of days, already has close to 61.9 thousand followers already. And it was this account that tweeted misinformation last week that I'm still want the answer to, claimed that hundreds of journalists and people were visited by police on the same day, on the same weekend, last weekend in the UK. And nobody's been able to give me the actual source of that. And it really is starting to make me very angry and very cross, the amount of mis and disinformation that we are being subjected to, because obviously there's a lot of awful, awful, rancid stuff going on in this world. We do not need to over-egg it. No, we don't. No, we don't. I'm not the only person who has concerns, by the way. Ben Rubin, whose image I'm also going to use, but Ben was on fire yesterday. And Ben said on X, lots of UK patriot, in quote, accounts with large followings pushing the inevitable civil war narrative, many anonymous and only recently joined the platform. Don't fall for it. This is exactly what the establishment want. This is exactly where the establishment want us to want. This is exactly where the establishment want us to go. Sorry, Ben. Conflict equals repressive crackdown and avoidance of justice for the regime. Absolutely. And who is at the helm of claiming that we have massive conflict in the UK? Blooming Elon Musk, literally retweeting misinformation. I want a source to these hundreds that were visited. And the thing is that truth matters. Truth matters. We know there are awful things happening. There are people who were put in jail. There's a man who's dead who should never have been put in jail. Awful things are happening. But the problem is when you have all these anonymous accounts and the Daily Telegraph telling us stuff that appears not to be true, then what it does is it swamps and floods the market with lies. And people don't know what is the truth anymore. And they just tire of it. And they walk away and they leave the status quo to be maintained. And that is problematic. I'm really concerned about the sheer volume of mis and disinformation online. And I don't completely trust the accounts of what Alison Pearson has said any more than I trust what happened to Bernie Spofforth. It appears that a certain type of person UK person is being approached about this and then nothing is being done. But the very working class people who have somehow got embroiled in all this, whether it was filming protests on their way home from work, as Cameron Bell did and was in prison last week, working class people are being imprisoned, while these very, very middle class media types are not. And they appear to be questionably spreading dubious information. Watch out for them, people. Please watch out for them. Watch out for them. I'm not convinced they're there for the good of us all. And we have to wade through the misinformation as much as we humanly can. Right. I did mention Ben Rubin. Ben is a good one. I want to share this because I think this is actually important. And that is, Ben tweeted this yesterday. And this, of course, is the image of Donald Trump, of Elon Musk, of Robert F. Kennedy, of, is that Donald Trump Jr.? They are, I don't know, is that Air Force One, presumably? And there they are. This is like their first picture of them all together. And they have a pile of junk food boxes on the table. Now, let me be clear. Right. I believe that most things in moderation is absolutely fine. And that also includes junk food. Right. I also will indulge in junk food from time to time. Right. And, clean hands. And I also understand that people have cheat days and all of those things that we say to justify this. But there is no justification for this picture. This picture, look, nothing in politics happens by accident. And as Ben said, make America healthy again. Brought to you by BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, JP Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway, by way of McDonald's and Coca-Cola. RFK Jr. is a total hypocrite. What an astonishing image. And I am really disappointed. Everybody knows I was absolutely thrilled with some of the noises that RFK Jr. has been making about going out against big pharma and big food. And this picture is an absolute disgrace. It really is. And I felt that Ben's tweet summed it up the best. I think it's shocking. I don't think there's any justification or excuse for this. The first picture, imagine if they had bowls of salad on that table. What a fantastic image that would send. America is a grievously overweight country. It is. And this is awful. This is absolutely awful. It's totally against the message that they claim to be portraying. And this is like gaslighting. I really don't buy that. I guess, like I say, I do believe that junk food is absolutely fine in moderation, although some people would say never, ever is it fine. But this picture was wrong, absolutely wrong. And I can't make head nor tail of it other than to say I believe that they were gaslighting us. That can be the only rationale at this stage for me, unless you can think of something in the comments. Can you think of something in the comments? Right. And just want to quickly touch on this. This is from Barbara, aka Tara. Good morning to you, Tara. I've just seen this and thought you would be interested in our Chancellor being in such a high position without any qualification for the job, but worse, lying on her CV where she claimed to be an economist. That's not a resigning matter, it's fraud. And she's talking about Rachel Reeves, of course, the very cruel Chancellor, part of the whole agenda, of course. And Kevin Gillette, former director of banking operations at Lloyd's, has come out on LinkedIn and asked for his story to be shared. And he tagged Rachel Reeves on LinkedIn. And it's a significant statement. And what he's actually saying is, let me read it for you. Can my network please share? Right. Let me just look at it. Can my network please share this factual story? Back in 2009, Right Honourable Rachel Reeves worked 3 levels below me. Just facts. She was a complaints support manager at LBG HBOS, not an economist. Fact check, hashtag. Nearly got sacked due to an expenses scandal where the 3 senior managers were all signing off each other's expenses. Narrow escape. Then had lots of doctors, dentist visits, so she was followed. Turns out she was doing Labour Council business. When shown the facts, she resigned. Hashtag facts. Now she is robbing people who've worked hard. Now she is ruining every agricultural family. Evil, evil socialist. Socialism is great until they've spent your money. Thank F I live in, don't know where he's lived, and I've 77p in my pension pot. F the socialists. says a man who was once senior in banking. But I think that's interesting because that has some interesting provenance. It seems credible. It seems like a credible accusation to me. And the thing is surely Rachel Reeves should respond to it. No, actually, surely what should have happened, because it's a big story, is the mainstream media should have been full of it yesterday, given what Rachel Reeves is doing. And actually it wasn't. I literally haven't found one story, but if you found a story, send it to me and I'll highlight it. But I haven't found a story. And that would suggest to me that they don't want us to know that Rachel Reeves has potentially lied on her CV. She would not be the first one, by the way. But then we're not all in charge of the country's finances. And she is. And she's a particularly cruel and punishing chancellor. And it would appear she's lied her way into position. So, Rachel, speak up. Tell us the truth. Tell us what's really going on. Are you a liar, Rachel? I mean, I know it's hard to believe that a government minister could be a liar, right? Talking about government ministers, Nadine Dorries is out and about plugging her new book and telling the world about the big open secret in Parliament, and that is politics is full of gay men, and many of them are hiding behind their wifey beards. Oh, yes. She bangs on. She's in the Daily Mail, and she bangs on about gay group sex in Westminster. Serious question: how many men in politics and the entertainment industry are not now gay? Because there seems to be a huge volume, and I've been a gay ally for practically as long as I could breathe, right? But all of this hiding is really problematic now. We're in 2024. Right. And Nadine Dorries claims that she was sent very serious, sordid pictures of serving MPs in the nude, masturbating in their offices in Parliament. Right. And she said she was sent this after she'd written her book, The Plot, which detailed the dark hands in Parliament, including Michael Gove and Dougie Smith and a whole host of other people. And there's no doubt that Nadine Dorries is a major Boris Johnson supporter. I actually think that she probably had a huge crush on him for the longest period of time. And The Plot was very much about a plot to oust Boris Johnson. But nonetheless, in her haste to sell books or support Boris or whatever, she's letting leak a huge volume of information that we should be privy to, because the House of Parliament is where they make laws. They shouldn't be having orgies there. And apparently they're organizing them on WhatsApp, and they have these gay orgies at the end of the political day in their offices, right? And they're organizing them on WhatsApp. Right. And the thing is I've said for quite a long time now that a lot of the young males who are taken in straight from university are young, male and gay. And it turns out there may be a huge amount of truth with that, because two of Nadine Dorries's main contacts who sent her these images are two young males who are straight out of university. And the thing is that these young males are being subject to all manner of abuse. They are, because a lot of them want to rise in the ranks of politics. So they think they have to be abused by these politicians. We don't know who Nadine Dorries is talking about other than William Ragg, who's already been exposed. He's already been exposed. And he was exposed for sending images and details of other people to people that he'd met on Grindr, if I remember correctly. But so he's no longer in politics anyway. But there are other people that it would appear are still in politics who are involved in this. And we deserve to know, right? We deserve to know, because these people, and by the way, she also talks about how many politicians are taking coke. And I don't mean the bottled kind, right? And we know that there was actually, I think, a study about the sheer volume of coke traces in the bathrooms at Parliament. These things aren't okay. I don't want stark naked MPs masturbating in their offices and taking coke. Call me odd. Call me odd. And what else have I got to say? Who's received one of these, by the way? Tracking and tracing. This is about bowels, right? Bowel screening. Have you received one of these? Let me take the picture of Nadine Dorries off when I'm talking about bowel screening, because Priscilla wrote to me. She said, this is a very awkward question, but I hope you don't mind me asking. I've received the NHS kit for the bowel cancer screening. And aside from the disgusting procedure involved in returning it, I was asking myself why they would do it. I mean, we know they do not have our health as their priority. So why would they spend so much money to collect and process our poo? It's a very good question. Does anybody know? I don't know what's going on here other than data capture. I don't know, but I've got one. They sent one to me as well. Does anybody know? The conspiracy theorist in me, says Priscilla, tells me that those samples are going to be used for profiling our DNA or something. What does anybody think about that? Anybody else received it? I'm not pooping on a stick, says Mikey. I see. I don't. Right. Are they sending them to males and females? There's Priscilla in the comments. There she is. I got one too. Not done it yet, said Teresa. I wrote back. Oh, here we go. I wrote back to the NHS and told them, what's this? Robert from Health Freedom UK put his in the bin. Susan also put hers in the bin. And Monopods, I wrote back to NHS and told them never to send me lollipop sticks to put up my A word. Interesting. Very interesting. Right. So please write in if you actually have any theories about what this is about. I suspect actually Priscilla is right. I suspect she's right. Let's turn to some geoengineering people. Yes, weather manipulation. Peter said he was walking in the North Lake Fells. It was a beautiful day, but I was staggered by all the chemtrails and the way they expanded. Let me bring in Peter's chems. The attached pics don't give justice and not as good a quality of what you receive, but I thought I would send them. I think we can see enough there, Peter. There's some interesting imagery going on there. Yeah. Oh, Mayday. Yes. Ask Debbie Evans about poo tests. Great point. Debbie should come on. I love Debbie. She's great. She should come on and talk to us about these poo tests. But just going back to Peter's pictures. Yeah, they're quite stark, aren't they? None of this is normal. Does anybody, I mean, I'm starting to understand the patterning as well, right? And Jan says, oh, what's that? You can't trust any photos now. Even I can Photoshop stuff and I'm no expert. What was that in relation to? I don't know what that's in relation to. I'm confused. But anyway, I can see how the trails have expanded there, Peter. Yes, I can. And Shalini also, oh, that's upside down. Sorry about that. But anyway, you should get the gist of it. And Shalini said, even on a Sunday morning, right? Even with the sun, this AM, there's stripes. Get you? And Tony, this is a good one as well. Tony sent me this from Rotherham, actually 7:30 this morning, Monday, the 18th of November, 7:30 a.m. in Rotherham. Yeah, that's really normal because planes always leave those kind of trails, don't they? Thank you, everybody. By the way, it's 11:11. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to send me your geoengineering pictures because I think it's really important that we talk about it. I do think it's important. Yes, Angela, let's remind everybody again. Please let me put this on screen. Farmers protest tomorrow, 11 a.m. Parliament. Please, everybody remember. What's that, Dilip? Creates a wide stretching and expanding blanket. Been a while since I last saw the sky. That's the frightening thing, isn't it? Short order cook has got to leave early. I love you too, sweetheart. I love you too. Yes, I do. We've had a few trolls in here today, haven't we? This is the thing, is that now we are expanding and like significantly expanding because 1,000 plus new subscribers since Friday is decent expansion. We are going to attract trolls, but that's all right because we will deal with them toot sweet. Yes, we will. They'll try to chip you next. Lived in high rise in London for years and never saw skies like this, says Janine. Exactly. Or Jeanette, rather. Never saw skies like this up to 1988. Gosh, you've been able to pinpoint it. Yes, Randy. Exactly. The sky's just completely different. But of course, they want to fool us that we're seeing things, don't they? I think that is about it for now. But I'm going to end on the importance of... Oh, what was that? What was that? What? Just to say, please be careful where you turn to for your news source, whether that is establishment media like BBC or GB News or social media accounts. Again, going back to what I said, did you see last week how much people made about this non-story about racist outdoors? Not one of those people have read the report that was claimed to come from, because I did. I read that report and I could not find any of that. And then I traced it. It was one line. And guess where that one line was that created and generated all these news stories that was debated from GB News. Bev Turner debating this nonsense to talk radio and on and on and on. One line. Guess what newspaper? I know you can guess it. It's the Daily Telegraph. One line to say that, right? And what were they distracting us from? They were distracting us from a potential paedophile, not potential, an absolute paedophile scenario that has enveloped the Church of England and pulls in all manner of heads of our state, including royals and prime ministers. That's what those people were distracting you from when they were telling that absolute BS non-story about racist dogs. So please just be careful where you get your news sources from. And I wouldn't trust GB News to tell me the weather. Well, they can't, can they? They're absolutely hopeless. They certainly won't comment on geoengineering. And that's Paul Marshall and his bunch behind them. Right, let us end on the importance of making mistakes. Importance of making mistakes. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. It's important to make mistakes. Yep. Mistake is an act or judgment that is misguided or wrong. There's other words for it: error, fault, inaccuracy, omission, slip, blunder, miscalculation, misunderstanding, and on and on and on and on. And William George Jordan said, mistakes are the growing pains of wisdom. And I have to concur. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I look back on some of my mistakes. They have been the greatest tools that have shaped me. My mistakes literally have been some of my biggest and best lessons, right? They've refined me. They've directed me to the next step. And people have different levels of mistakes, obviously, according to the factors operating on them as an individual, both physically and mentally. A mistake for some could be something as egregious as sleeping with a friend's partner. For others, it could be failing an exam or tripping during an Olympic race. Those could be considered mistakes. But some of them, obviously, like sleeping with your friend's partner, as one example, is that a mistake, or is that a lack of moral judgment? I don't know, but it's still a mistake, isn't it? And mistakes occur for a multitude of reasons, right? And unless you're actually amoral, then sometimes mistakes happen like that. Sometimes people fall in love with people that they shouldn't, and all manner of stuff happens, and people come together for reasons that aren't necessarily great for everybody involved. But we're only human. We are allowed to make mistakes. And that's why it is important to be able to make mistakes, right? And also, sometimes we make mistakes through hot-headedness, right? Reacting badly to someone else's mistake. So someone else's mistake can trigger us into making a mistake. And also, sometimes I think that what we perceive as mistakes are not so much mistakes as the universe rerouting us from a course that is not for us, right? Equally, making a mistake could make us more determined to refine what we are doing to the point where mistakes are few and far between, if any. But as I say, we're human and we are imperfect, and mistakes have literally guided me. They've guided me, shaped me, refined me, put me on the right course. I am so grateful for the mistakes that I have made. And I'm also grateful for the ability to be able to correct my mistakes. When I get things wrong, to be able to own up to them. And I know that not everybody can do that, right? And the thing is, it's not, for the most part, it's not like we deliberately make mistakes. That's why they're called mistakes, right? And by the way, if we did deliberately make that mistake, such as, for example, choosing to sleep with your friend's partner, then it might be time to examine why behaving that way is an option for you in the first place. So even that mistake can serve a great purpose. It could get you to change your bad habits of a lifetime. Okay. And I think one of the most important things about making mistakes is don't endlessly beat yourself up about making mistakes. Depending on its gravity, I will acknowledge it. I will make amends about it if need to, and then I will move on. But I will learn from it. I will learn from it, because the thing about the benefits of making mistakes is you learn and you grow. It creates resilience and adaptability within you. It creates creativity and innovation within you. It will improve your self-awareness. All of these things are fantastic. I actually think that we should make more of the importance of being able to make mistakes, because some people, they, like when you see those helicopter parents and they're all hovering over their children, the children are petrified to make, put a foot wrong and everything. Mistakes are vital for growth. It also builds your confidence when you make mistakes and you recover from them. And mistakes can really guide you truly to achieving what you need to and to get the success you want. And sometimes people don't make mistakes, but they think they have. But that's because they are literally beating themselves up and trying to be too perfect when they don't need to. Right. And there's people have a fear of judgment. So sometimes they take a wrong step there. And sometimes people want to avoid conflict. So again, they may make a mistake rather than face a situation head on. But I am here to tell you, lovely people, that it's not only just fine to make mistakes. It's a blooming good thing. Who makes mistakes in the comments? Tell me. What's this? Barking mad. What's this? GB News is fake, Mikey. What's this? What's what I got? I'm way behind on comments here. Yes, humility. To fail. I like that. To fail is first attempt in learning. And yeah, beyond belief. It's another mistake to deny the mistakes you make. Yeah, we are humans, Marie. We're humans and we're weak sometimes. Yes, Stephen. And thing is that's why I think it's important to be able to, I kind of like that whole idea of judge not lest you be judged. I'm sorry if I've completely mischaracterized that from the Bible, but you get my drift, because we all make mistakes. Of course, I'm not talking about elite parasites. They're not making mistakes. They're making calculated moves to oppress and imprison us. That's a whole other story, and I do not forgive them. But as human beings, we do make mistakes. And yeah, exactly. Mistakes are a message. Exactly. And there's so much brilliant detail that can be contained within those mistakes, right? We are all imperfect. We are. Martin is a human and he needs to be loved. Big love to Martin in the comments. Flaws and inconsistencies. Humility. Yes, humility to admit things is a lovely quality, said Crazy Bunny. Yes, Marcuson, absolutely. Act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. Yes, I love it. Be kind to yourself. Good ship, Lollipop. I try and do my best, Teresa. I always like to round out the show with something like this, because I never forget at the end of it, right, is that we humans all coming together and trying to do the right thing. You're very welcome, Hamish. I'm off to power up a ley line. Hey, Central London, the naval by the Thames. What's that? Omphalos PowerPoint. There's a lot of words there I don't understand, but I'm going to look them up when I go. Governments never admit to making mistakes, Jan. They don't, because they're not mistakes. They're not mistakes. A lot of the time, they're not being incompetent. Learn from it. Very true. I usually think of it until you have learnt the lesson you're discovering. And once you have learnt the lesson and you still do it, then it's a decision. Exactly. Got it. None of us can change the past. Embrace your mistakes. I love that. What's that? It's not my land to lose or defend. Win, del change. I kind of like that. Good luck saving that country, though. What are you talking about? Be candid about your mistakes. Mikey has got steak for dinner. I see. Oh, I like that. That's why sports should be about playing, not winning. Yes, exactly. Biggest mistake was affair with married man. Out of integrity, never again. But I hope you're not beating yourself up about it, Very. I hope you're not. There are many people that still don't see them as not normal. Yes, me every day. Other people's mistakes don't matter, says Eric. You're very welcome, Robert. Lovely to see you, by the way, sweetheart. Yes, there's a place near me called Great Leylands. I wonder. Yes, Squidgy, me too. Sorry, not me. Sorry, that was a mistake. Every minute of every day. Beats and tapes we're allowed to, right? Anything is possible with sunshine. But is there sunshine? Because there sure ain't sunshine here. But listen, on that note, I just want to thank you all for being here. You lot are amazing. I have loved you this morning. I love you every morning because I just think you're so wonderful and fabulous. Okay. And thank you for all your messages. Please keep them coming in. Thank you for being here in the chat. Thank you for watching on playback. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. And thank you, of course, as ever, to our two fabulous mods. And I think we're going to end on this. All my life, one big lesson. Absolutely. So on that note, I am going to end, of course, on a quote. And it's from Danny Meyer. And he said, the road to success is paved with mistakes well handled. There you go. Have a fantastic week, all you wonderful, glorious people. I will see you Friday. Take excellent, excellent care of yourself. God love you.